Alrighty, hello there. Welcome to Behind the Scenes, AV Rant. It's episode 625, behind the scenes version anyway. We're live recording, live on air. And since you're watching the behind the scenes version, and Tom is back. Hey, look. Hey, there's Tom. How's it going?
Jazz hands.
Yes, jazz hands with a scowly face. It's very
I don't understand why Mac has changed it so that suddenly every time you open an app, it stays in your dock forever until you have to manually get rid of it.
I would have no idea. I don't use Macs.
I'm so over this computer. I'm so over this computer.
So since Tom is back and I'm back to using a two-computer setup so I can do the split screen on the other computer because I still haven't even bothered to look at OBS. So, you're going to get the rough version if you're watching this. Should I even try to put up images? I'll try to put up the most important images in this behind-the-scenes versions because people really don't like it if they can't see. But you know what? For all the CES stuff we're talking about, you're not going to see those images. You want to see that stuff? Look for the completed version because the completed version will come out, probably tomorrow. That's, so it's not that long to wait.
You got nothing to do? You got no big plans?
I got to clean up, but that's about it. So, there you go. All right, you've been warned. This is behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, good. Minute 48. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Happy New Year to Tom. Welcome back, Tom. It's Tom's first AV Rant podcast of 2019.
Yeah, I heard Lee talking smack. He was all, oh, it's my podcast now. Shut up, Lee.
That wasn't what he said.
That is what he said. And you know what? Nothing made me happier than watching Bama get their butts kicked last night because whenever Alabama is playing, if you're a Facebook friends with Lee, whenever they're playing and winning, it's like a nonstop Facebook stream of big red blocks of, big red windows with, Roll Tide in there. And, that was a TD and bad call or something. But he shut up pretty quick last night. So I really don't care about college football at all. But boy,
this is how Tom says thank you to Lee for filling in for 2 episodes.
That's right, Lee. Look at that big head.
That's the love you get.
Well, how was your holidays?
Holidays were good. Yeah, I had Christmas dinner and that with the family over at my parents' place, so that all went well. Kids loved their Christmas presents, so that was awesome. And then New Year's I didn't do anything particularly special. Went over to a friend's place. Just that was about it. Hung out. That was about it. Boat was good. Yeah, it was nice.
I am so happy my children are out of my house.
It
was just
it's been 2 weeks,
over 2 weeks of them just all up in my grill. And my wife's like, I don't understand why you're getting so aggravated. Oh my God, get out of the house. They were just ugh. So yeah, it's nice. It was a nice holiday. The kids had a good Christmas. Fortunately, the 12-year-old had already figured out that Santa, spoiler alert, isn't real.
Okay.
And so
at least not in Tom's house. There, covered.
Yeah, that's right, because he doesn't come to angry people like me. But his Santa gift was damaged in shipping.
Oh man!
So we ended up having to send it back, and instead of getting him another one, I just gave him mine. So
okay,
whatever. That sounds weird, but he got a pull-up bar for his doorway.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, we found out after we couldn't install it because it was broken, that it wasn't going to work anyways because none of our doorways in our house are standard and whatever.
Oh,
so
really?
I had my wife had gotten me a hangboard, which is a climbing version of a pull-up bar, but you install in the wall and it has like different little places for your fingers so that you can practice different types of holds.
Right.
And so I just gave him that. He's like, here you go. Merry Christmas. So my wife was like, so what are you getting for Christmas? I'm like, I don't care.
Another one after you return the busted one.
47 years old. I don't really care. So this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us a question at avrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/AVRant, where we will not at all probably pay attention to your comments, but we might. But question at AV Rant's the way to go.
Question at AVRant.com. That is the place to send your questions, please.
Then if you want to contact Rob directly, it's Rob at AVRant.com. His Twitter's at First Reflect. I'm Tom at AVRant.com. My Twitter's AVRant_Tom. So yes, we are back. And
we are back.
I watched all of season 1 of She-Ra.
Yay!
So it was very good. I will admit that was a good show. And
well, if you watched all of it, then yeah, you didn't even do the skip around version that I
don't really think that you have to do the skip around version. I mean, it's fine. You want to get to know the characters a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was, our kids. I mean, when we were growing up and there was cartoons like this, the best sort of message you might get is, be a good friend. Or lie or don't lie or something like that. That was the best message you get. This thing is so complex as far as
it has layers. I mean, like that episode 11 where, this is going to be weird for nobody who's watching this, but like She-Ra and Catra's whole thing, I'm like, that's a pretty complex relationship for a Y7 rated show.
and so I'm like, I'm watching this. I'm like, in my day, these were just very long commercials for Transformers.
Yeah, for toys. Yeah.
So
completely.
But this is it's so much better than that, and definitely sending good messages. So if you have a young child or a person who's young at heart, I think it's a good show. I liked it.
Yay! Cool.
Yeah. All right, let's go and thank our listeners of the week, which some of them are listeners of since Tom's been gone. To become a listener week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. This will send you to a PayPal donation site. It's going to start the year off that way, are we?
Yep.
We're just going to do that.
Mention, since some people do come to our website on the mobile version on their phone, that if you scroll down to the bottom, you have to click the desktop version, which is an option, right? Just scroll down to the bottom of the page if you're on mobile, click the desktop version if you want to get the donation link, because it doesn't show up on the mobile version.
Oh, that's weird. Should.
So that's a tip.
So the PayPal donation site, which PayPal gets your credit card or your PayPal account and sends money to us through it. So we want to thank Fabrizio, or I guess is he go by Fab?
He goes by Fab.
That's Fab, Johan, and Jason and Zach. So thank you, Fab, Johan, Jason, and Zach.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's Fab. I think Johan goes by Bastion because we've been emailing back and forth.
Okay,
so
Bastion. Sorry.
Yep. And Jason and Zach. There you go. Yeah, guys, thank you very much for those donations. Really appreciate it.
That Bastion, it must be hard after the never-ending story, man. I mean, that's just like I'm never going to be able to. I've never met anybody named Bastion. I've met, of course, Sebastian, but I've never met anybody named Bastion until that movie came out. All right, I want to also thank our patrons over at Patreon.com. We have currently 76 patrons. Patreon.com is a service where you can sign up and they can take a monthly pull from your account and give some to your favorite content creators, which may include us. So we want to thank our 76 patrons over at Patreon.com.
Yeah, patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. If you'd like to sign up, thanks so much to our 76 patrons over there.
If you can't support the podcast or don't want to support the podcast financially, I completely and 100% understand. But if you do something that you think in some way enriches us, let us know, and then we will mention you. So we mentioned Jason here ordered some Cat 6A. Justin, that's what I said. So ordered some Cat 6A Ethernet cable from Blue Jeans Cables and told them how frequently we recommend them. And Frank left a very nice comment on Lee's converting analog videotapes to digital episode, and in doing so, confirmed that the comments on our website are working again.
Yeah.
That is, I think I found the button.
Okay.
I think I found the button in the back end that said allow people to start, allow new users to comment.
Gotcha.
I think that was what was killing everything. But I still have you have to be confirmed.
Okay.
Once you get a comment verified or approved, then you can comment all you want. But the first one that you have to get approved, and I won't always notice that until whenever I post a podcast. So that was done this week. So yes, Frank, thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks for talking us up to Blue Jeans Cable, and Frank, thanks for doing that. I know Lee appreciated that comment very much. That was nice.
Yeah, I saw that too. So that was good. And I mean, it's a heady topic. So I guess, I don't know. I didn't listen to it. All right. From CES 2019, which happens over my anniversary. And instead of going at CES like I had done when I was with Audioholics, I now get to stay home all life. We went out to dinner, which I kind of didn't like, but that's okay. Oh. Not her fault.
No.
The restaurant was I mean, I'm picky. All right.
Oh, you're a good cook. So.
All right, CES 2019, Monolith announced their Monolith HTP1, a $4,000 9.1.6 Atmos and DTX Pre-Pro with DRAC Live. It's based on the ATI ATP16, which was itself based on a dataset platform after ATI acquired that company. So much like the Monolith amplifiers, this appears to be a way to get what's essentially an ATI product at a significantly reduced price. $4,000 is reduced. What was the ATI version of it?
$9,000. Oh, so that's a lot off.
Jesus,
it doesn't have Oro 3D in the mono price version. But that seems to be about the only feature difference. So a 9.1.6 processor for $4,000. That is the lowest price we've seen for that. You do also have the option to set it up other ways, like you could do 7.5.4 is one of the options with like 5 separate subwoofer outputs. So it is configurable. But yeah, that's $1,000 less than Emotiva's RMC1, both of which have DRAC, although Emotiva hasn't been able to implement DRAC on it yet. They're waiting for an update. Just have
the sticker on the outside and that's it.
It's got the sticker. It's coming. But so this HTP one that Monolith announced, which was kind of a surprise to me. And I want to thank Josh Pollard, who was the first person to alert me about that, although other people got excited and let me know as well. This is like the $1,000 less, 9.1.6, and kind of a surprise to see that they're coming from Monoprice. It's a higher price and a larger configuration, but they're going for that niche market. So
right, definitely niche. I mean, it's all XLR outputs on the
It is.
speaker.
It's all XLR. There's no RCA outputs on the back of that thing.
And essentially just HDMI inputs. I mean, there's a couple of other stuff up there, but for video, it's
couple
HDMI.
Of analog audio inputs, but that is it. Yeah. There's no analog video. So interesting to say. They did say Q3 of 2019 is when this is coming out. And going by the ETAs they've given for ATI's amplifiers that they sell under the Monolith moniker, there's usually like a couple of months later than what they first proclaim. Although they do usually come out not too long after the
I don't know. It's kind of hard to, I can understand. There are some people who are going to buy this for sure. And then I 100% support them in getting the best price they can for such a device. But
I'm thinking Christmas time 2019 is when it'll actually be available.
It just seems like a lot of money for something that's not a receiver that can do almost as much. Yeah.
But the Denons that are in this same sort of price class, like it is about $4,000 for the X8500H, which does have 13 amplifiers built in, but it tops out at 13 speakers, not 15 like this one. So that's what you're getting.
So it can drive all 6 overheads?
Yes.
Wow. Cool. All right. Apple AirPlay 2 and HomeKit are in almost every TV brand now. So Vizio, Sony, LG, and Samsung for sure. Samsung will even have an iTunes app on their TVs, basically making a separate Apple TV device unnecessary. All of this is in preparation for Apple to launch their own streaming video service. So,
yeah, this was, certainly the most widespread news that I was seeing coming out of CES. And so Apple is preparing to launch their own streaming video service to take on the likes of Netflix and Disney Plus and that, with their own original content, funded by Apple.
What original content?
They made a deal with Steven Spielberg to do something. They made a deal with M. Night Shyamalan to do something.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, it's coming. It's a thing. And they're like, well, I guess if we're going to have a streaming service, we need to be on more than just Apple devices. So they've forged these partnerships. AirPlay 2 is mainly the way they're going to do that, which means you need to bring up whatever you want to watch on an Apple device and then
stream it to the
AirPlay
device.
To it over to the television. But you don't have to have a separate Apple TV box anymore.
From the TV manufacturers' perspective, this is no brainer. That's like, you got another streaming service? Sure, why not? But I am extremely
it's a little surprising to see Samsung putting iTunes itself in their TVs, considering how much they battle each other in the mobile market. But whatever. I mean, Samsung, honestly, this year at CES seems like they're like, you want to put, ALEXA on, go for it. You want to put Google things on it, go for it. They're like, we're not limiting you to Bixby anymore. We're just like, just bring it all. Bring it all. We're just going to support everything.
That's the best way to be. I mean, honestly, why are you fighting with these companies when you should be giving your customers
Why give a potential customer any reason to choose something else?
Right.
How does that help you?
Yeah. I mean, you look at, so Hulu already had like partnerships with it was a partnership between a bunch of TV studios. Netflix was, when they first started up, I mean, everything they had on there was second, also ran B tier movies and crap. It wasn't for years before they got really a viable option. Disney makes sense. I mean, it's Disney, but where's iTunes? I mean, how much original content and how many deals are they going to be able to strike?
Well, I mean
they've got the money.
Yeah, Apple has enough money. They could literally, not even exaggerate, they could literally buy every movie studio with the cash they have in the bank. That's how much money they have. So if they need original content, I mean, they could buy.
Are they really going to sink that much money into this? I mean,
I don't know.
Doesn't seem like. Who knows?
Boy.
Well, hey, all you guys who are standing in line for Apple's, the new iPhone when it comes out, let us know how that service works, because I ain't signed up for it. Samsung showed off an even larger 219-inch version of the Wall, the micro LED display that we talked about in the past. Now, with even thinner seams between each of the tiles, so that they're completely invisible from 6 feet away or more. They also showed a 75-inch 4K micro LED display, was still made up of smaller tiles, just to show off their miniaturization efforts. So that's kind of cool. I mean,
yeah.
This is kind of going towards, I don't know. I only watched like the first maybe couple of episodes of Black Mirror, but there was one episode of Black Mirror where the people would wake up and there'd be a commercial. Their whole wall, would be
their
a commercial.
entire, like, every part of the room was a screen,
right? And then if they close their eyes, they got some notice saying you have to watch this.
That's right, yeah.
But
I like that episode.
That seems to be where this is going. Is this idea that we don't paint anymore? We just put the stuff up.
Surface is
every surface is a screen, right?
Yeah. No, I mean,
what could possibly go wrong?
For the people who are like, oh, micro LED is a competitor to OLED, well, last year when they showed it, it really wasn't, because they just couldn't get the pixel pitch close enough that you could make a screen. At the time, it was 146 inches, and that was the smallest screen they could make with 4K resolution. Any smaller, and you wouldn't be 4K anymore, because that's just as close as they could get the pixels at the time. But now they got this prototype of a 75-inch. This is not going to be for sale. It was like embedded in this display wall, which means it's way thicker than what you're seeing. Right. And what they showed, and it had people who got up close to it were like, yeah, it's got a few little issues with it and that. So it was a prototype, but it's just showing that they can make it small enough to do 4K resolution at 75 inches now. So if they can do that now, that means in a couple of years, maybe even only 1 year from now, you probably will be able to buy such a display. It'll be expensive, but it means the development is there that this could now be a competitor to large screen OLEDs. It's possible, at least.
All right, Sony showed a new, okay, now going back to that thing. If they're little panels that you can install and uninstall, this whole stuck pixel thing suddenly becomes a thing of the past. You can just switch out. You have your installer, because this is certainly something you're not going to be able to just do yourself. You have your installer come over and, you got this little square will replace for $3 million or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, Sony showed a new Z9G 8K resolution LCD TV series in huge 85-inch and 98-inch screen sizes. They also have new A9G and A8G 4K resolution OLEDs, plus their new X95 950 series 4K LCD TVs, and a new X800M2 Ultra HD Blu-ray player with Dolby Vision. So, yay.
Yeah, so actually, it's kind of weird, but I think I'm most excited about that X800M2 from Sony, because I'm like, yay, it's the X800. It really is the X800, because it still plays SACDs and DVD audio discs and still has the better build quality, but now with Dolby Vision. So people who have an X800 who are like crossing their fingers and hoping against hope it might get an update, no. This is an entirely new unit. It's not an update to the X800. It is the X800M2. But yeah, the other stuff, the TV stuff, I mean, kind of to be expected. One disappointment is that they were saying that the new X950 series, which is replacing the X900 series, they're doing their X-wide angle thing, which they first did on the Z9F that came out just at the end of 2018, which gives LCD screens much better viewing angles from the sides, but it totally washes out the blacks. It basically makes it look like an IPS panel. I'm like, ugh, nobody liked that, and now you're putting it on your most popular series of TVs? I'm not sure that's going to go over so great, but yeah.
That seems about right. All right. LG showed their new OLED TV lineup, including their 88-inch 8K Z9 model, which will actually be for sale later this year, and their 65-inch R9 model, which is their rollable OLED that will also be available later this year. The Z9 uses the OLED screen itself to make sound. Much like Sony's acoustic Surface, the R9 also has Atmos sound built into its base. What? Whatever.
Yeah.
Shut up. Stop it. Stop it.
So they've got
I
this
don't buy your
rollable-
TV because of the sound, dummies.
Well, I mean, they're putting Atmos and everything. The 8K one, it's it's acoustic Surface on the 8K. Well, they're calling it something else. I don't know what their trademark name is, but yeah, the surface of the TV makes the sound, and it's an Atmos sound coming out of the gigantic 8K thing, and then the roll up.
The Atmos sound. They're bouncing everything off the ceiling.
It's all virtualized, you know. But yeah, the 8K one is built into this base that they've got for it, and yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. It's got these little horizontal metal slats, and that kind of holds the back up, and it's got these two arms that raise it up from the back and rolls itself in and out. So that's a real thing that you're going to be able to buy. That's kind of cool.
LG also had their normal OLED TV lineup, the C9, the E9, and the W9. They all get true HDMI 2.1, meaning full 48 gigabits per second bandwidth, variable refresh rate, low audio, auto low latency, and EARC, which is the expanded
enhanced audio return channel. Yeah, lossless through the audio return channel.
Whatever. Smooth gradation gets its own menu setting now, no longer hidden in the MPEG noise reduction setting. And they're claiming they've improved the black frame insertion option by having it insert black frames only 1/4 of the time instead of 1/2 of the time, which should reduce flicker. They also have a WiSA built in, so you can run a 5.1 wireless speakers setup directly from the TV.
Yeah, Klipsch seems to be like the only speaker company who's like on board with WiSA right now.
Yeah, WiSA has been around for frickin' ever.
It's been, AVRant did it and abandoned it because it didn't work so great at the time. But they've been plugging away at it, and now Klipsch is on board, so that's something, and it's built into these LG TVs. So I mean, that's not nothing. That's an interesting feature to have included in there.
You know, it's easy for my perspective, and probably a lot of the listeners to this podcast perspective, to poo-poo something like that as being, oh, why would you even want your TV to be sending this sound around your apartment or, you know, house? But the reality is, you know, you walk into people's houses all the time. I'm like, I'm just looking around this. First, a lot of times I look for the speakers and they don't exist. I'm like, oh God. Or you'll see the speakers and you're like, oh no. Why have you done this thing? You know? They all seem to be in a line at the back of the room,
right?
You know, on top of, you know, coming out of the ceiling, right? You know, within a foot of each other. Like,
yeah, no, making it so you don't need an AV receiver, you don't need any speaker wires. I think that's a worthwhile thing. But yeah, I mean, LG is just throwing everything in there. They're the only TV manufacturer that has completely confirmed that all of their 2019 TVs that do 4K and above, maybe not all of the 4K LCDs, but most of them, full HDMI 2.1 ports. They confirmed that. No other brand confirmed. I mean, Samsung's gonna have it, and Sony's gonna have it, but they stayed shy of fully confirming it. LG did. So yeah, there you go. For all the people who are on YouTube who are always like, don't buy this TV, doesn't have HDMI 2.1 yet. It's like, well, LG now, yeah, you can't say that about them anymore.
Exciting. All right. Comments from our listeners. Donald, he heard Ed asking for a way to switch between two different amplifiers feeding one pair of speakers. Donald recommends the Niles SPK1. It's exactly for this purpose: 2 sets of speaker wire inputs feeding one pair of speaker wire outputs, and use a 12-volt trigger signal to switch between source A and source B. That's cool.
There you go. It's a purpose-built thing. It's exactly for that. So yeah, thank
How
you,
much is
Donald,
it?
for letting us know. Looks like most places about $120 to $150.
Okay. Carl shared a Sound and Vision article entitled 65 years ago today, December 30th, 1953, the first color TVs arrive. It does a great job of pointing out how many people are saying it's too early for 8K TVs when most people haven't even upgraded to 4K yet, and there's no 8K content. But in 1953, most people didn't have a TV. There was all of one color broadcast in 1954 New Year's Day Rose Bowl Parade. Boy, that still has the cultural significance it did back then. And it took about 15 years before most broadcasts were in color. Also, the first color TVs had a 15-inch screen size and cost between $1,000 and $1,200 at the time, which equates to about $950 $9,500 to $11,000 today.
Yeah.
Color TV was also proclaimed to be the most resounding industrial flop in 1956 by Time magazine. All right.
So yes, all the people who are like, 8K, that's nothing. You don't need it, and proclaiming it dead before it's arrived. It's like, yeah, people said the same thing about color TVs.
Let's get a couple things straight here. Okay, first of all, there's a big difference between 8K and color TV. Color TV is a substantive change over black and white. I mean, it is not the only substantive, but it is noticeable by even the most, ignorant of users. They're going to know that that's color and this other thing is not, and the color is enhancing their experience. I have never said that 8K is going to be dead. In fact, I'll say the same thing about 8K that's about 4K. No one needs it. But we're all going to end up having it.
We're all going to have it at some point.
They're going to stop selling 1080p TVs, and we're going to all end up with 4K TVs at some point. That's what's going to happen.
Tom will get an 8K TV right about the time that 32K is coming out or something.
That's right. So with I'm a long way from getting 8K. But the same thing with 8K. We didn't need 4K for sure. Because it was
I agree. It's a different situation, but it was just funny to see the parallels of like back then with some, like you say, something as substantive as color TV, for it to be claimed a resounding industrial flop by Time magazine. It's like, well, there you go. You had your naysayers about something like that back then too. So.
Well, certainly. I mean, as far as sales and stuff like that, and you could make the same argument about HD when it first came out. When HD first came out, those TVs were small and super expensive, and there was
very little to watch on them. That was actually HD.
Yeah, there was very little to watch on them, but that took a long time to get out. Like the difference.
How long it took for shows like Survivor and Family Guy to just go widescreen instead of 4:3.
Yeah, that was
ages afterwards. Yeah. Those were popular shows.
Those were popular shows, exactly. Whereas going from 1080p to 4K is like, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're scaling it looks just about as good as having the real stuff anyway. So. Whatever, but yes, you're right. It is an interesting parallel, but I think it's a false equivalency in some ways. Jackson says he's worked for a TV repair center with a local installer for over 10 years. He says the number of damaged TV screens of all types, LCDs, plasmas, and OLEDs, that he's seen due to improper transportation is mind-boggling. He says that to think of any TV as being similar to a fragile piece of glass, when it comes to how it's transported. So he would never recommend laying a TV flat while transporting it. Only ever have them properly packaged and standing upright during transport. And the larger the screen size, the more important it is not to lay it flat. Dude, we don't keep the box. I'm sorry. No one keeps the box. No one keeps the box. The box
definitely
is too
laying
big.
TVs flat in the back of my small SUV.
I've actually done both. I've actually used straps to hold the TV kind of in place in the back of my small SUV. Kind of like piled things around it and towels and stuff like that to keep it upright. And I've also laid it flat. I'm not in any way disagreeing with the man.
I mean, the manufacturers will tell you transport it upright. Yeah. So he's not saying anything that we're like disagreeing with. It's just the old, we've done it and it's been okay. But I do not doubt for a second that
look how glass
many people have damaged their TVs this way.
Yeah, glass is normally transported when you see it going down the street. Yep. It's not lying flat.
It
usually.
They've got it vertical on the side of the trucks.
Yeah, that's right. So, I hear you, dude. And I agree with you. And at the same time, this does not happen. All right, Gary just wanted to share a pic of his completed home theater. A Marantz AV 7705, 2 Rotel amps, power a full Atmos complement of B&W speakers with a Sony VW295 4K projector casting an image onto a 125-inch Stewart Firehawk 2.4:1 screen, or whatever it is. So widescreen screen.
Yeah, CinemaScope screen that he's got going on there.
It is very nice.
It's a nice looking place. Yeah, we're very happy that you're happy with your setup, and it's always cool to see the equipment in the rack there. So
the equipment in the rack is funny because it's clearly in someplace else because there's like raw insulation right next to it. But I was like, what is the reflection on that? Is those kegs? But no, they're like paint. They're paint.
Yeah, no, that is over in maybe the utility room or something like that. But over in the theater, things are looking
nice. Gray walls. I really like that. There's still a white ceiling because he's a human being and doesn't want to live in a cave. So the carpet looks very, very nice and plush. I guess the only thing I wouldn't even call it a complaint or whatever is just that there's no recliners. It doesn't look like. I mean, maybe they recline.
Low slung seating. I mean, maybe he wanted those surround effects. He doesn't want any seat back getting in the way of his head.
That's true. It looks real super nice in there, and those are some nice speakers. I'm hoping that there's a second B&W subwoofer at the back of that room someplace.
That would be good. Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure he said that he's got 2 subs. I'm pretty darn sure of that.
Yeah, it looks really good, dude. Congratulations. I enjoy that. All right, let's get into some questions here. Luke wants to upgrade his living room sound. This might be the largest volume of air we've ever talked about. A wide open space with 20-foot ceiling. So he estimates 36,000 cubic feet.
36,000 cubic feet, yes.
So he's thinking full pressurization isn't a reasonable goal. Well, I mean, we could do it.
It theoretically can be done still, yes.
It gets done in movie theaters all the time. They probably got more than 36,000 cubic feet. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that's what you want, but he likes something better than his current clip soundbar and his wireless subwoofer, in quotes. He has an Onkyo receiver already, and he'd be totally fine with a 2.1 setup for his space. He'll be replacing his current 70-inch TV, which is above the fireplace, with a 77-inch OLED. The speakers are on the fireplace mantle. He'll only have about 7 inches of space, but the speakers are wall-mounted. He'll have about 10 inches of space on either side of the TV, the 77-inch TV. He's got about $2,000 to spend on high-output subwoofer and a pair of speakers. What do we recommend? Dude, you got to do power sound audio is what I recommend, and then put that thing
for the sub.
Yeah,
you certainly could. Yeah, I mean they've got options like
this house is so nice, though. I mean, if you guys can see the pictures, so I mean, basically what's happening here is there's the living room that's downstairs, which is basically open to the kitchen and everything, and then there's a loft upstairs, which is completely open to all of this. So the ceilings are huge, and the TV has got a nice, sort of like, looks like marble-esque, so mantle on the fireplace. The walls are very nicely finished. There's nice furniture. There's a rug on the ground. I mean, he's done kind of what he can do here as far as acoustics, but I don't know that you want to shove a power sound audio black matte box that looks
that is a big honking box
into this space.
Yes.
So it may be worth it to spend a little extra money.
Raw output for the money, like they've got their V1811, which is a ported 18-incher for $1,450 delivered. You can't really beat that. I mean, they've got a 15-incher for $1,150, right? So
right. I mean, the closer you can put it to your couch that you're sitting at, because it looks like the couch is kind of on the back wall there, away from this TV, maybe. Because I mean,
it does have a wall behind it there.
Yeah. So I don't know that there's going to be an option for placing it like really super close to you. But this is going to be no matter if you're looking to pressurize this thing, or even if you're looking to get a reasonable amount of output out of a subwoofer and still feel it as well, you're going to want to put it close to you.
Right. I mean, I'll mention the other high output options that are out there that would fit this sort of price range. HSU has their VTF-15H Mark II. That goes for about $1,050 after shipping is included. Rhythmic has their FV-15HP, which is $1,400 shipped, or they have their even larger now, FV-18, again, an 18-inch driver, but that's between $1,700 and $1,800, so getting close to your $2,000 budget without the speakers in it. And then Monoprice, I do want to make sure I mention their Monolith subwoofers more, and actually they announced at CES that they're going to have sealed Monolith subwoofers now to go along with the ported ones they were already selling, but they got a 15-incher, a ported 15-incher for $1,300, and right now they're doing free shipping on that too. So that's one of those options, because the monoliths are DSP controlled and they're like unbreakable like SVS's subs are. So that's one I don't want to overlook. But then looks wise and footprint wise, there is the PC 4000 from SVS. It is $1,800, so it doesn't leave you a whole lot of money for speakers, but that is an option where it would certainly take up less floor space, and the cylinder might be less obnoxious looking. And then all of the other ones are gigantic black boxes.
I didn't realize they had a cylinder version of the 4000.
They've only got cylinders in the 2000 and the 4000 series now. That's it. Okay. But there is the 4000. So, it's an option.
You're going to really have to take a look at your space and decide what you want.
I mean, it's giant black box or tall black cylinder. Those are your options.
Right. I mean, we've seen people dress these things up before. So, yes. I mean, with some of these subwoofers, you have the option of getting a
A nicer finish?
A high gloss finish, or maybe a real wood veneer or something like that.
Yep.
But
like HSU has a rosewood veneer finish that they offer.
It does come in a premium usually, as far as cost goes. So you're going to have to think either you want this thing to be seen, and therefore you do that, or you like put it next to your couch and then drape some acoustically transparent fabric over it. And people say, "What is that?" Oh, it's an end table. Can I put my shrink on there? No.
Right,
because it's gonna bounce off. but those are sort of your options. Now, as far as speakers are concerned, I mean, it looks like he's sitting very far away.
He's pretty far away. Yeah, decently far away, all right. But I mean, he's been getting by with a Klipsch soundbar, which, I mean, Klipsch is always efficient, but it's a soundbar. It's still a soundbar. And so he wants an improvement on that, but he's, that's been usable.
Right. So, I mean, HSUs, if you're going to go with ugly black boxes, let's stick with that motif and go with HSU's little speakers.
Horn-loaded speakers. Yeah.
Is it HB2s now? Is that what they're called?
HB1 Mark IIs.
Mark II. Okay. So those have gotten, like, I didn't like the Mark I's, but apparently the Mark IIs are better. Everybody keeps telling me. So that would be a good option for you there. If you're looking for something smaller, I mean, it'd be very hard sitting this far away to have something that's super small. And remember, I'm not exactly sure where you're getting your sound from as far as the gear. He says
he's got an AV receiver. Yeah,
okay, Onkyo receiver. Okay, yeah. Okay, then he should be fine there. But he's only looking for 2.1 and doesn't really have room for floor standing speakers, so that's kind of out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I immediately jumped to, since they're done now. The Focal Bird series is done. It's gone. Mark let us know directly that Accessories for Less, they have a teeny tiny little bit of stock left of exactly what I would point you to, which are the Super Birds.
The big ones,
If you want something that can go on wall, they still have like a couple of, it says right on their website right this moment, like almost sold out, but houghly that means there's still a pair. And like that would be my choice for you, because they can play amazingly loud for the size that they are. They are wall mountable. They'll look nice next to your screen. They are available in both black and white. So if you want, all white, that might be an option too.
Right.
So
if they are available, though, usually the white ones are the last ones to go. Usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
But I mean, once they're gone, they're gone. So if you're going to get them, you got to get them right now.
I guess my other suggestion would be RBH, the Impression series. Those usually those can usually play pretty loud. Now, I don't know. I mean, we're looking at it. Kind of depends on where you're going with the subwoofer too. So I mean, in a room this size, we're never going to stay sealed as far as sub is concerned, because it's just never going to.
But you could go all HSU here and get there if you want the rosewood finish that's available on everything. So you could do that with something that looks a little nicer. It's still big boxes, but they might look a little nicer that way, and it would be affordable. So
yeah. But I mean, if you put it closer to your couch, I mean, it's like I said, sealed is never really going to work. But if it's like sitting next to your couch, like an end table, well, then I might say, okay, we'll go away with the smaller footprint and get a sealed box, but sit on it if you can. All right, Leighton. What's our recommendation for Bluetooth earbuds? He's willing to spend as much as $150, though $100 would be preferable. Well, when I looked for Bluetooth earbuds, I bought RBHs for my kids, which I got on sale for $50, what they are normally $150. So
that's right.
Hopefully you can get them for $50 still.
They're still on sale. When I checked this morning on their website, they still have them on sale for $50. Yeah, those are the RBH. What are they? The EPSBs.
They have like 2 different earbuds or 3 different, like when they're like.
But not Bluetooth ones. Oh, you mean tips? Tips.
Yeah, tips.
Tips. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
Oh yeah,
that's where I would point you.
I'd point you there too. Yeah.
There we go. Easy one. Brian. First up, Brian says he wrote this a while back when he was looking for surround speakers to match his RBH in-wall speakers, but since he couldn't find an RBH dealer nearby, he took our advice and inquired about becoming an RBH dealer himself. So now he dealt to himself. Now he has RBH surround speakers and everything sounds great, and you probably got him at a significant discount. So
it worked out. Yes, like we say, sometimes you call them up, you go, and they will sometimes even go like, do you want to be a dealer? A dealer? Do you want to be a dealer?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, that mean, no, that mean.
Yes.
Brian has a projection set up in his basement. The whole basement is wide open and has 10-foot ceilings. The projector, an Epson 3020, was already installed when they moved in, and using a laser measurement tool, he measured the distance of 11 feet 7 inches from the lens to the 90-inch screen that was already installed. For Christmas, he got a 120-inch silver ticket screen, but now that the screen is installed, he's discovered the 3020 can't quite fill the whole screen. There's a 1 to 1.5 inch gap all around the projected image. I guess when he expands it up as much as he can.
Yeah, I blew it up, zoomed it in as much as possible, and there's still a little gap between where the image ends and where the frame begins.
Lovely. According to Projector Central,
go from 90 to 120. So.
And you know who notices it? Him. No one else.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
According to Projector Central's online calculator, 11 feet 7 inches should be the absolute bare minimum for casting a 120-inch image. But then using the exact figures listed in Epson's manual, he calculated 11 feet 7.5 inches as the bare minimum. Yep. So the gap around the image seems a bit big for only a half-inch shy. Dude, I don't think so.
1 inch on a projected image? Like,
oh my God.
A half an inch or 1 inch extra zoom or distance is significant on a 120-inch projected image. Yeah. So it could literally be that half inch, or maybe like the silver ticket screens, right? Mounted on the back of the frame, there's a teeny gap between the material and the actual wall. Right. They kind of hang a bit like a picture frame. It's like that combined with being 1.5 inch short on the projector could be 1 inch shy in the total distance that you need from lens to screen to completely fill 120. This is well within the realm of possibility.
So you ask, is the throw distance information just inaccurate? And as we just said, we don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
When they say it's going to be 11 feet 7.5 inches, that is what they mean.
Yeah, he measured 11 feet 7 to his old screen. So like I say, if that new screen is a fraction of an inch closer just because of the way it mounts on the frame versus the old screen, that could account for it, definitely.
But he doesn't really want to take down his existing ceiling mount, patch the ceiling and move them out, and potentially have to move or replace a 50-foot HDMI cable, all for literally 1 inch.
Yep.
But he hasn't found any projector or ceiling mounts that lets you adjust the entire projector forward or backwards. So do we have any suggestions? Well, the first suggestion is to get over it. Just live with the little.
No, I would be the same way. I wouldn't be able to stand it.
Don't get me wrong. I would sit there and just get aggravated by it. And then I would do the stupid thing. I would point it out to a friend, and every time they came over, they're like, "Huh, look at that little gap right there." I'd be like, so I hear you. I hear you. Like, don't tell anybody and then try to ignore it. It would be the cheapest option. But there are lots of mounts out there that allow you to adjust, forward, maybe not forward and back, but allow you to adjust quite a bit. And even if you can't do that, surely there's the down rod you can get an L-shaped one.
Oh, well, I mean, this was tougher to come across than I could find, but Chief, who makes very good projector mounts, probably a bit of overkill for a 3020, but you kind of need what they sell. First of all, they have a regular mount, a universal mount that they call their RPAU. Now that has kind of these 4, spider legs that attach it, and that might be enough. We're just like wiggling the position of the legs might be enough to just eke that projector back an inch, because all 4 of those legs are completely movable.
Well, that's the thing. That's the kind of mount I used to have when I was in Jacksonville, which basically it's like these 4 different leg things, and you mount them there into the holes, but they're not fixed, so that you can.
Those are floating arms.
That should give you enough play. I mean, you're only looking for half an inch.
If it isn't, the reason I'm specifically mentioning this Chief one is you can add a sliding adapter to it. Now, they call it their lateral slide because they're thinking that you need to move it left to right to maybe perfectly center the image. Some projectors have their lens offset and don't have horizontal lens shift. That's the way it's marketed, but I don't see any reason why at the most you couldn't rotate like the entire thing on the pole itself 90 degrees so that now the slider is moving front to back.
Yeah.
I see no physical reason why that wouldn't be doable. So
those mounting holes are all equidistant from the center of the pole, so it should be fine.
So you've got this universal mount with the spider legs, and then if that doesn't work, you can add this lateral slider to it. You'd be looking at $200 all in if you got both the spider mount and the slider if needed. So this isn't a super cheap solution, but it's probably cheaper than buying a whole new 50-foot HDMI cable if that's needed. So
for a half an inch, I don't really see it.
I'm hoping the spider legs by itself is enough, because that would be a little bit more reasonable. But yeah, there is that solution.
All right, Fab. Fab is planning out a dedicated home theater. The proposed room is going to be 12 by 24 by 8.5. He'll be using the existing equipment and hopefully adding some additional gear. He already has a 125-inch Illumination Vision screen. His plan is to mask it down so that's a 2.35 to 1 screen and to sit 12 feet away. So what are our thoughts? Sure. I mean, I don't know why you're masking it down, but I guess if you really want to, you see, people listen to you and they're like, "I want masking," just like Rob, because Rob's super smart. And
yeah, but I'm talking motorized masking so that you can still have bigger 16 by 9 when you want it. That's not what he's talking about.
I know he's talking about getting rid of it completely.
Yeah. And people are enamored by the CinemaScope thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already had a guy who has a 2.4 to 1, 2.4 to 1. Anyways, so yeah, I mean. But I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't. I'd leave it 125 inches, 16 by 9. That's what I would do.
Why in God's green earth would you ever give up any real estate on that screen? People
that way, if you're watching something that's IMAX, now IMAX is bigger than CinemaScope, as it should be. So, yeah, I don't know. That's what I would do. But I would also. So he did send him a diagram. He's got the layout. We'll be talking about speaker positions and stuff coming up. But right now he is smack dab in the middle of his room, front to back wise, because 12 feet away from the screen, and it's a 24-foot long room. So he is smack dab in the middle. And actually, with the width of the screen that he has, because either way, the width of his screen is going to be the same. It's going to be 109 inches wide.
Right.
And I would recommend sitting 11 feet away from that instead of 12 feet, which gets you just in front of the halfway point acoustically, which I prefer. It moves you a little closer, and it's going to potentially make some of the other stuff, including where his rear seats are, a little bit better. So I'm talking 1 foot closer. I don't think that's not doable. These are seats. You can move them. So I would do that. I would have yourself 11 feet eyes to screen instead of 12.
All right. So this proposed layout has 2 rows of seat with 2 feet from the back of the first row to the front of the second row. Is that enough?
No.
I mean, you could get into that chair and you can sit down, but does it recline? Because if it reclines, you're completely hosed.
Even worse. No, you need a minimum of 2.5, preferably 3. And now that you're moving the front row of seats 1 foot forward, if you follow my recommendation, now you got 3 feet, so you can leave the back row
it to this guy
exactly where it is.
You were moving that. You were moving one of those seats, whether you liked it or not. Because once you got that thing set up, you would be like, "Well, this isn't going to work," and then you would have to move one of the chairs. Yeah. So this is you decide, I guess, if you really want to sit smack dab in the middle of the room, which is acoustically non-optimal on pretty much every level, then you're going to move that back row of seats back so people can get in and out of it comfortably.
But the way we're recommending, the back row stays where it is, where you've planned it. If you've already planned out the riser and everything, good news, nothing changed there. We're just asking you to move your front row 1 foot closer, which should be entirely doable.
So he has a diagram with his proposed speaker layout marked as letters. Do we think his speaker placement is correct, in particular his Atmos positions? So he's got left, right, center up front. That's fine. The sub 1 placement is like behind the screen. Sub 2 placement is at the back of the room in the middle of the wall. So that's good. His surrounds are just a little bit behind, maybe right, not quite behind, but just to the sides of his couch, but toward the back end of the couch there for his surrounds. He's got no surround backs, and he's got double Atmos speakers. The first Atmos speaker is just barely in front of the first seat.
Yeah.
The second Atmos speaker, the second set of Atmos speakers would be just barely, no, they're just basically right where your legs would be, right where your knees would be if you're sitting on the second couch, which remember is only 2 feet in this proposed layout.
Yeah, right.
One. So no, I mean, I think you need, this is 8.5 foot ceiling. You need those the front Atmos speakers to be about, I'm going to say a minimum of 3 feet in front of that couch.
Oh, minimum. I would say 5 feet. 5 feet is what I would
5
recommend.
feet is what we normally recommend, but since he's got 2 rows of seats, I was cheated a little bit forward.
So about 3 to 5 feet.
And then the back ones, I would definitely go 5 feet behind the front couch.
Right.
Yes. And therefore, that would actually put it looks like, behind the back couch. Or
just barely
behind the back.
But that's fine. That's perfect.
That would be great. And then you have top fronts and top rears.
Top rears. Yeah. Yeah. So we would spread your Atmos speakers forward and backward a little bit more. Yeah. 3 to 5 feet in front of your front row, and then 5 feet behind your front row. And that should be ideal. The surrounds are fine where they are.
Right.
That's going to be fine. Now, I would recommend just wiring for surround backs and maybe even for a second pair of side surrounds for the back row.
I like that
just
too.
run the wire while you're doing the construction because that's cheap and why not?
I don't necessarily think the surround backs are super important, but if you got 2 pairs of surrounds, I think that might be nice.
And he's got the room certainly behind his front row of seats that surround backs would make sense in here. So he doesn't have the equipment right now. That's totally fine. But just running the wires while the room is under construction, why not do it now while the walls are down instead of trying to do it later and poking holes, right? So I would recommend that.
Right.
That would be it.
Yeah, I like it. So his screen is not acoustically transparent, but there's an alcove behind the screen, behind the screen wall. That's where I said the first sub was behind the screen there. And he's thinking he put his PC-12 Plus sub back there. Will it work behind a non-acoustically transparent screen? Well, this is my answer to that question. Well, no.
No, if it's all solid, no.
If your screen is 100% covering this alcove, which is what you've made it sound like, then I am 100% against this. This is just that air coming out of that subwoofer is going to push on that screen, and it's going to bow and do all sorts of weird things.
It's going to vibrate your image. I mean, it can vibrate my wall, so it's going to vibrate your image if this is what's going on. If it's not.
But if the alcove is from floor to ceiling and your screen is covering the part of the alcove and the bottom of the alcove, which is where the PC-12 would be sitting, and the PC in particular, the ports go up, but the driver goes down, so the air would go around the top of the screen and around the bottom of the screen. Then I would be like, okay, try it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's got to be a way for the air to move. Right? So you don't want a solid surface. If it's a solid surface essentially sealing up the alcove, no, don't do that. Lay the PC-12 Plus on its side below the screen in front of it, if that's what you're going to do, because it's totally fine to lay the cylinder on its side. That should work out. But yeah, if there's room for the air to get, I mean, if he's building a false wall to hold the frame of the screen, just make sure that you don't solidify the wall. Make sure that air can get out of that alcove through some speaker grill cloth covering your false frame or something like that. That would be okay.
Yeah. I've always wondered, okay, so if you're laying a let's say in his case, he was lying the subwoofer down on its side in the front, but the one in the back was standing up.
Yeah.
So do you lie the subwoofer down on its side smack dab in the middle of that wall so that it's equal from either side wall, and then put the subwoofer in the back smack dab in the middle of that wall? Yeah. Or do you put the driver in the middle of where the driver comes out in the middle of the wall, and then
it makes so little difference with base.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
What are you talking? 2 feet at the most. So little difference.
Yeah,
base waves are so low.
I'm surprised we haven't had that question.
Yeah, well, plus there's sound coming out of the port, which is at the top of the thing too.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking. You light smack dab in the middle.
I mean, when people do the ground plane measurements, some people measure, close to the driver and close to the port, and then sum it together in software. But the other thing you do is you just lie it sideways. You move the mic a little bit farther away and put it equidistant between the two things. Yeah. It's that's what you're doing in real life. So.
All right, so he'll be using his Yamaha RX A2050 receiver and ELAC Unify Tower.
That's why he doesn't have surround backs, because that one tops out at 9.
Oh, there you go. ELAC Unify Towers and Center. He doesn't have surrounds or Atmos speakers yet. He'll probably get ELAC surround speakers. So what in-ceiling speakers should you get for Atmos? So he says he's got a max of $250 for each of these speakers, so $500 a pair. Doesn't ELAC make
in-walls and in-ceilings? They do. Yeah. They're in the debut series, but they do. So that is certainly an option as debut in-wall speakers and in-ceiling speakers from ELAC. That is a very, very safe option.
Right.
Strictly for in-ceilings, I mean, I'd be totally fine still pointing you to Outdoor Speaker Depot. Actually, the MK650s that we used to recommend a lot, those have been discontinued, now replaced by the ACE 650s. Not to be confused with the ICE 650s. These are the ACE 650s, which are the same as the MK650s, except they now have a borderless thing when the speaker goes on. It doesn't have a border around the speaker grill anymore.
Okay.
So they've just updated a little bit. But yes, I'd still be fine recommending those to you. They're like $90 a pair, well under budget. I mean, for Atmos.
Jesus. Right. RBH has in-wall in-ceiling.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah.
Used to. So, I mean, I'm sure you can spend more money if you really want to.
But, he'll probably get the ELACs because it matches and everything. And that's a totally safe option and fits the budget too. So, yeah.
Brandon currently has a 5.2.4 setup using all golden ear speakers and a pair of SVS subs. His surrounds have to be in walls, so he went with the Golden Ear Invisa MPX in walls that use a single folded ribbon tweeter and a pair of 4.5-inch woofers that are angled a bit in opposite directions. And now he's thinking of switching to Ascend acoustic speakers with RAL ribbon tweeters, at least for his front threes. He knows he could just audition the Ascend speakers and see how well his existing in-wall surrounds match. But if they do not match well, he wants to know if there's a great in-wall speaker option that will match the Ascend RAL speakers for certain. Ideally, any alternative in-wall speakers would be the same size or larger than his Golden Ear MPX speakers, so he doesn't have to patch his walls. Dude, I hear you. Patching drywall is the worst.
He's like cutting it a little bit more
is fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Having to patch it for smaller, not what he wants to do.
So these suggestions. Okay, so in walls, they got it surrounds that be in walls. Well, we just said RBH. And yes. I don't know the size of their speakers compared to these things.
Well, they've got one that's very similar sized, also a woofer tweeter, woofer design, just like those MPXs. Okay. And it's almost exactly the same cutout size. So,
okay.
Yeah, I would recommend if you're going with the RAL ribbon tweeters that you do spring for, so this is in the Visage series, but it's the Visage M series, which use the upgraded MC series drivers.
Right.
I would recommend that. I would kind of strongly recommend. I mean, for what he's asking, he's like getting as close as you can. Now, are these, if you put them side by side, both up front and AB switched back and forth, are they a perfect timbre match? No, of course not. They're very different drivers, but they're both so neutral.
Right.
That I have no qualms at all about recommending those M series, the Visage M series from RBH, to go along with the Ascend Sierra RAL speakers. I would totally vouch for that. I would also vouch for Focal, and they have options too, but they're so expensive for the ones that are this kind of size.
Right.
Crazy expensive, and I don't think it's necessary in your surrounds to do
now,
that. So RBH.
We talk a lot about our Golden Ear and how they have a sound.
They do.
And that this is a very valid question because Ascend is very neutral. Something that has a sound may not be, but for surround duty,
I know
you very well might be just fine not switching them out at all. So yeah. I would cross my fingers and hope that it didn't bother me, or I didn't notice it.
Like, he is willing to do that. It was more a matter of if there's nothing out there that can go in wall to match nicely with the Ascends, then he doesn't even want to go down that path and try the front three. I'm like, no, the RBHs can do it. So.
Right. I mean, if you got the money, you definitely find something. But I mean,
Dave will custom build you something if you want to pay for it. So there's that option too, man.
Right. All right, Justin. Justin has his gear in a rack outside of his theater. We talked previously about HD Base T solutions, and he managed to score an Altona unit, one of the options that's usually priced at $6,700 for only $250. So he's happy with that. And HD Base T converts HDMI to basically a Cat 6 cable and sends
it to Ethernet.
That way you can send it like 300 feet for
sometimes
pennies.
And probably pennies. Not for 4K HDR, probably more like 70 feet for 4K HDR, but still pretty good. Or no, like 70. No, what did they say? I don't know. Whatever it is. Not quite 300 feet, but it's all good.
So he wants a solution for headphones. Even though he's put a lot of effort into his theater, he still wants to use headphones in there sometimes, but his Marantz SR7010 is far away in the equipment rack. So all right. So, okay. Before we get really into this, I guess I suppose my question is, what are you listening to in here? Are you watching a movie and then having headphones on, and that's why you're doing this? In which case, you definitely have to use the receiver. I mean, it's very hard not to. But if you are listening to music via some other method, then maybe there's a way of not having to run a cable all the way back to your Marantz. So think about that. But
like connecting the source to something else.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just if he's listening to Spotify, he's listening to Pandora, he's listening to streaming service of some sort.
Oh, just do it on a mobile device. Yeah,
do it on a mobile device. That's right. But anyway, so let's pretend that's
let's pretend he's watching a movie off of a disc. He's not going to move his Ultra HD Blu-ray player out of the rack to do it. That's what he's listening to. Sure. Yeah.
So he asked, could you run a long 1/4-inch headphone extension cable? He's talking 30 feet or so. And the answer to that question, as long as it's well shielded, yes. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't. It should work.
Oh, it should absolutely work. Yeah. He was worried that he was thinking like, DC voltages over long distance. It's not DC. It's an alternating current going on. So, yeah.
So would the Marantz receiver's headphone jack be sufficient, or should he get a separate headphone amplifier? And if he gets a separate headphone amp, should he run the cable from the Marantz's headphone jack into the headphone amplifier, or should he connect the headphone amplifier to his Zone 2 pre-outs? Would the Zone 2 pre-outs connection even work with this projector still connected to Zone 1 HDMI output? Okay, so a couple things going on there. I've never met a headphone amp that went from headphone jack to headphone amp jack. It doesn't work that way. You go from source to source. So you would use a RCA connection from your Zone 2 or Zone 1 or whatever it is out to your out to your headphone amp. Sometimes we'll take optical and that sort of thing, but you probably don't have an optical output on the back of that thing. So it's just fine with RCA. That being said, whether you listen, I mean, the question it actually involves your headphones more than it does any of the other parts of this. Because if your headphones are easy to drive, the Marantz's headphone jack should be fine. I mean, I don't know what the quality of it is, but as long as your headphones are not hard to drive, planar magnetic headphones, blah blah blah, then just run the cable. Just run the cable and you're fine to go.
Get a good quality long extension cable, and that will be absolutely fine. Agreed. Yeah, so I mean, could he do Zone 2 pre-outs to a separate headphone amplifier and still have the sound from Zone 1 HDMI output? Yeah, you totally can. You can set the same source going to both, with the caveat though, you do need to set the source to output stereo in that scenario.
Right.
So that is a little bit more of a hassle, because that means going into
he's going to have a hassle anyways, because he can't keep the headphone jack plugged in to his Marantz.
Right. He has to walk over.
He has to walk all the way over there, plug it in, and then walk back and plug in his headphones.
I wonder, because like with the Marantz SR7010, the pre-outs are hot all the time. Do you have to use the front, left, and right pre-out? Well, if he does just front, left, and right, he's going to be missing some sound, isn't he? If it's still in surround sound. So that's not a solution either. No. Scratch that idea. Yeah, no. So if you're going to use the Zone 2 thing, that means setting your source to stereo when you're going to do it. Then you turn on Zone 2. That's fine. You send the same source to both Zone 1 and Zone 2, which does totally work. And now Zone 2 pre-outs are feeding your separate headphone amp. That can be done. It can be done.
Really, I mean, it depends on what you're once again, like we said, it depends on what source you're listening to. If you're like, oh, I only do this when I'm listening to CDs, and my only CD player is,
I mean, could you do the Xbox One option, right? Because you can run headphones off of the Xbox One controller.
That's true.
You can run headphones right off of that. So, and it's got an HDMI. That's an expensive solution. It's got an HDMI input, right? The Xbox One has an HDMI input. So could you take your Zone 2 HDMI output from your SR7010, plug that into your Xbox One, and use your Xbox One controller as your wireless headphone?
Does he have an Xbox One? Because
I don't know, but
he certainly is true to buy one for this solution. When you could buy a cable.
If you've already got it, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility to do things that way.
Anyway, so he has Fostex.
Tom's not a fan of that idea.
He has Fostex TH100 headphones, as well as a pair of Sennheiser HD280s. He is underwhelmed by both of them. HD280 sounds like a lower end model of theirs.
Well, it's like they're like DJ1, which are pretty good. They're pretty good.
So he asked, will the headphone amplifier bring them to life, or does he just need to buy new headphones? No. Headphone amplifiers, I don't think, in my experience, very rarely bring things to life like people say online. They're like, oh my God, these headphones sounded like garbage, and I plugged them into this headphone amp and suddenly they're amazing. Well, if that thing doesn't have an EQ, then I don't understand where you're coming from.
Well, I mean, it can be the case with very difficult to drive headphones. That can be.
That's the only case, right? Yes. So,
and the Audis are not super easy to drive. So if he did,
I didn't get to that part of the question. So he asked maybe the Audi's LCD2 Classics, would those benefit from a headphone amp? The Classics, how much are those? Those are pretty pricey, aren't they?
Yeah, they're what are they? $700?
Yeah, I was looking at Hi-Fi Man on Amazon just last night, and they've got like
Sunderas.
Yeah, well, those are like 500.
Those are 500, yeah.
But they have lower end, not lower end, but cheaper models that are on Amazon as well, which are $299.
Yeah, and the 400 series, yes. Yeah.
And I would definitely give those at least a look.
And those are pretty easy to drive.
Yeah. And in which case, you're saving yourself. You think to yourself, okay, well, these are I'm now no longer, not only am I buying these brand new headphones, but now I have to buy an amp for them. Well, that's another $100 minimum on top.
It is $100, and actually, I want to mention there is this JDS Labs, their little Atom amp, which is $100. Finally, an amplifier that is not a headphone amplifier that is not ridiculously expensive. It's $100, but it's not. Some of those headphone amps are crazy expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Just basic RCA inputs. You can actually use it as RCA pre-outs as well, but RCA inputs. So it's not a DAC. It's not a digital analog converter. It's just a headphone amp, but really, really low noise floor. In fact, like silent, which is what it should be. That's like the only thing I care about in a headphone amp.
Right, the headphone amp, sure.
Is that it's silent and up to 1 watt of power, which is an insane amount of power for headphones. You're definitely usually in the milliwatt range and usually only tens of milliwatts, if barely 100 milliwatts. So 1 watt of power output, really, really silent, $100. I would certainly point you there if you're getting a headphone amp. If you get the LCD2s, I wouldn't be opposed to that, because if you're willing to spend that much on headphones, what's another $100 on a nice headphone amp?
Yeah. Again, you're still going to have to run a cable. So the cable is a non-issue.
But now it's just RCA cables from your Zone 2 pre-outs, so that's
yeah, but you still have to run a cable from the headphone jack on the amp
to the amplifier. Yeah, but you can have the amplifier in the theater with you.
Yeah, so then he's running RCA cables all the way.
RCA cable all the way back to his rack. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems cheap. Whatever, doesn't matter. The reality, you've got a lot of options. So if you have the ability to AB or just try out some of these headphones. I mean, Amazon is your friend here, man. Return shipping is usually free. If you got Amazon Prime, or these things are going to cost enough that you're going to get free shipping anyways. So yeah,
I'm thinking maybe some Hi-Fi Man 400 I's.
Yeah.
Which don't need a headphone amp.
The S's do, I believe. Yeah.
I think the S's could, yeah. There's the 400, the 400i, and the 400S. The 400 is pretty much gone now.
Yeah.
But the 400i really don't need a headphone amp. So, yeah, maybe you're getting a long shielded headphone extension cable.
Go to Blue Jeans. If I was getting a cable this long, I'd go to Blue Jeans. I mean,
they make that, though?
Probably. Make everything. All right. Ted on Twitter. Over Christmas, Ted moved a sofa into his theater to replace one of the futons. Oh, this is that Ted. And why is it coming
This is Ted.
Okay. That moved his primary seat closer to the front wall, which has finally sorted out the imaging problems he's had with this legacy silhouette on wall speakers.
Hooray!
And since he's closer to the front wall now, he opted for a 77-inch C8 OLED instead of a projection setup. He's heard us praising OLEDs for a while, but his reactions to a 77-inch C8 is, oh my goodness.
Yes. He's very pleased.
Good. Is that what that means? Okay.
Yes.
He did notice a bit of white screen pumping. It's nothing terrible, but he preferred it if that weren't there. Is there any way to turn that off? Is that like a variable brightness thing that senses your room or something like that?
No, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the automatic brightness limiter, sometimes called ABL.
Right. So it's real bright, and it's like, oh, wait, it's not supposed to be that bright.
Yeah, when the whole screen gets really bright, then after a little while, it dims itself down.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about, is the automatic brightness limiter. Yeah, so I mean, you can't turn it off in the sense of just toggle it on and off, but it's related to the OLED light setting.
Right.
In any of the picture menus, there's the OLED light setting, which is very similar to like your LCD backlight setting.
Sure.
So it raises or lowers the entire brightness of the image as a whole. Now, if you set that to 35, which goes from 0 to 100, if you set it to 35, the ABL is off, because now white never gets brighter than 150 nits when it's full screen, so the ABL never has to come on. If you set it to like 40 or 45, you'll almost never see it. It's so slight that you're really not going to see it. And about 50 is sort of the cutoff where you might start to kind of notice it. So
play
out
with
of the
it.
box, yeah, pretty much all of the picture modes do have the OLED light setting, even the ISF ones brighter than 50. So yeah, try it at 50 or 40, 35 for sure. We'll turn it off.
So yes, should he have waited for the C9 OLED? When he found the 77-inch C8 for just over $5,000, he pounced. Will he regret not having the latest and greatest?
Are you hardcore gamer?
I don't think he is.
He isn't. I know he isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think he plays games every once in a while, but I don't.
Yeah. casual, but yeah, no. Hardcore gaming is about the only real reason that you might super duper care about the C9, because it's got the HDMI 2.1 with the variable refresh rate and the auto
and
low
the low
latency. Yeah. So I mean, the C8 still has low latency. It's 21 milliseconds. They're claiming now on the C9 it's down to 16 milliseconds latency, so even better. But it's mostly about that variable refresh rate and the automatically going into game mode when it detects that and that. So yeah. If you're not a hardcore gamer, there's exceedingly little reason to worry about this. Maybe the black frame insertion is a... Definitely don't worry. It's not going to be $5,000 when the C9 first comes out. In fact, unfortunately, OLED prices might not come down as quickly as we were hoping in 2019, because LG did announce that their brand new 10.5 generation OLED plant that they were going to open in South Korea, it's delayed.
Yeah.
It's delayed. So that means that pricing is probably not going to move down as quickly as we're hoping for in 2019. So I think you got a great deal, and you're not a hardcore gamer, so don't worry about it. You did good.
His center is an identical legacy silhouette to his main left-right speakers. Initially, he had intended to have them all vertically oriented behind an acoustically transparent screen, but up until now, he's had the center oriented horizontally, and now that he's bought an OLED instead of a projector, it's going to stay that way. So it's a folded ribbon tweeter, and there's no easy way to rotate just the tweeter 90 degrees since its housing is rectangular. It hasn't been a problem in this primary seat, but does Legacy sell a horizontal center version of the tweeter? I'm sorry, but Legacy does sell a horizontal centered version of with the tweeter rotated. Should he replace the center he has now? How bad is it that right now that he has dispersion that is taller than it is wide? Should he use shims on the wall to tilt the center upwards? Would that potentially mess up the boundary compensation that's part of the speaker design? I'm confused as to why he would tilt it up at all. I don't understand why that would.
Well, because normally we say when your center speaker is
below
or above your TV.
I was thinking about the dispersion. I'm like, it's already
already tall dispersion.
It's already tall dispersion to begin with. Why would you need to tilt it up? But okay, I see what he's saying. I think he answered his own question when he said it hasn't been a problem.
Yes.
So if it's not a problem, then why are you going to spend a couple $1,000 fixing it?
Oh, it's more. It's like $7,000.
Yeah, I would not.
No, this is too much money for that. I
mean, quite literally no benefit, I think. I mean, if it's not a problem, if you're not hearing a problem, then don't go buy another speaker to fix the not problem.
No, the way I always come at this is, figure out what I call it like a cone of dispersion, right? If you start yourself dead ahead center, listening to some pink noise, you move yourself to the left, move yourself to the right, move yourself up, move yourself down, and you'll find out how far you can get off center before the timbre of the sound noticeably changes. And you can sort of mark that or just visualize how wide is that cone. And as long as you're sitting within that cone, that's the sound you're going to hear. You're good.
Right.
So, I mean, in his primary seat where he's right ahead center, so horizontal dispersion doesn't really matter much, and it's below the TV, but he actually has this taller vertical dispersion now, you're almost certainly within the cone. Now, maybe your farthest seat to the left or right or something is a little bit outside, but you don't sit there, so it's not worth the money.
No, I don't think so. Several people have commented that how they prefer.
Should mention the boundary compensation thing.
Right.
That would be no problem. Remember, Legacy themselves told you it's perfectly fine to angle in your front left and right speakers, to essentially toe them in, even though they're on walls. If that's okay, then angling up a horizontally oriented center would be no different. It's the exact same difference that would be happening to the front left, right. So that's totally fine to do.
All right, so several people have commented about how they prefer to bump their subwoofer trim level up by 3 dB after having run Odyssey. Ted is in that camp too, but he would actually like more of a gradual rise so that, say, 120 hertz isn't boosted at all, but by the time he's down to 20 hertz, it's boosted maybe 5 or 6 dB. If he just increases the subwoofer trim level, it's just boosting all the bass frequencies by the same amount, right? Could Odyssey Editor app let him do what he wants? The answer is yes and yes.
Yes and yes, that is exactly right. Yeah, if you just up the trim level, then everything coming out of the subwoofer output is increased by the exact same amount. It's not a gradual rise, but the Odyssey Editor app will let you choose a new target curve, including a gradual rise in the bass. Feel free.
So what about Odyssey's mid-range compensation, that scary-looking notch at 2 kilohertz that's on by default even in the Odyssey flat preset? Should he turn that off in the Odyssey Editor app or leave it on? Both?
Give it a try, right?
Turn it off and then turn it back on, and then turn it off and turn it back on. And if you can't tell the difference, then whichever one you stopped with, leave it there. I mean, or you could do what I do, which is like I saw it and went, "Oh, I don't like that," and then Rob told me about it and I went, "Oh, I should fix that," and then never did. And here I am.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to the thing and I'm like, I can't hear it with real content.
No.
I can't hear it with real content, which of course is the idea. I mean, the guys over at Odyssey aren't fools. They're not going to put in something that's going to be super detrimental to everything you listen to. It is basically a notch. It looks scarier on the graph than it is. Yeah. It's very much a little notch filter in there, which helps some not so great designed speakers and seemingly does no damage to well designed speakers. So, I don't have a problem.
It's got to be where the mid range crosses over into the.
Yeah, it's where the mid-range driver crosses to the tweeter in a lot of speakers. Not all speakers, but it's right around there where a lot of them do, which is why they did it. Because, I mean, you've got the super cheap speakers sometimes with the single element crossover or no crossover at all between the woofer and the tweeter, and that creates phase alignment problems right in that crossover region. So that's why Odyssey put it in there as a default. And like I said, it seemingly does no damage to well-designed speakers, at least to my ears, with real content. I mean, if I was super critical listening to a really slow sweep, is that it's possible I could hear it? Maybe, but that's not what you're listening to. Real content, I've never heard it. So honestly, turn it off. It won't do damage because you've got well-designed speakers. Turn it on, you're never going to hear it. So either or.
Knock yourself out, dude.
Yeah.
Jay. First off, Jay says he usually listens to AV Rant just sort of in the background while he's doing other things because it's 2 freaking hours long. That's why.
I don't blame you.
And he's picked up tidbits like being introduced to SVS subs. And he likes that we talk about topics that don't seem to get discussed on other podcasts. Well, that's your fault because people ask us questions and then we answer them. So if you want us to talk about more stuff that's not on other podcasts, ask us questions about that stuff.
Well, he's not complaining.
So I know. That's what I'm saying. So he'd like us to buy us a drink, as it were, but doesn't want to use Patreon. So how can he send us some support? Well, I mean, there's the PayPal. We mention it like every time.
But it's only in the background, and somehow that has skipped over. So we are addressing you directly, Jay. Yeah. Come to avrant.com, our website. Go to the desktop version if you've only ever looked at it on mobile. And over on the right-hand side, it says support AV Rant, and there's a picture of a cup of coffee. So that's PayPal. That's how you do it.
That was my one Photoshop success story.
That's right.
I'm so bad at image manipulation, but that one I kind of got right. I'm like, I don't know what I did. Like all the stars aligned. It actually looks like a cup of coffee with AV Rant floating in it. So anyways, so yes, thank you. We would appreciate that, Jay, and thank you very much in advance. And if you decide not to get around to doing it, we still thank you. So he has a basement. It's already finished. In fact, it was an extension built onto a much older house, late 1940s or so. Originally, this basement extension was L-shaped and open, but after several years of planning, they've now demoed the theater area, taking it right down to the studs. And his plan is to construct a dedicated enclosed theater room with the dimensions of 12.5 by 23 by 8. There's one large soffit on the ceiling, 2.5 feet wide, and it drops down from the ceiling 1 foot. That runs the entire length of the theater, and then a similar soffit that runs the entire width of the room from one end.
On one end, yeah.
On one end. So the width-wide soffit is just on the other side of what used to be the original house's exterior wall. And oh my God, this is hard to understand. And the utility room is on the other side of that wall. As such, all of the HVAC ducting, air return, gas, water, and central vacuum lines are routed through what used to be the original house's exterior basement window and into those two big ceiling soffits to supply the extension that was built. Back when the basement was still finished in an open L-shaped, he had his projection screen just below the width-wise soffit so that the big opening to the rest of the basement was behind his seats on the right. I am so lost, but here we go.
There's some pictures coming up later, so you'll
good. I'm going to need
visualize all this. Yeah.
So he was never able to crank up his setup without bothering the entire rest of the house. So now that the room is going to be closed and made into a rectangle, he wants halfway decent soundproofing, and he's thinking he would rotate his setup 180 degrees so that the party wall to the utility room will now be his back wall instead of his front wall. Fine. I don't think the base cares about that, but let's go on. No. This is a big project for him, and he's hired a contractor to help, but he wants to make sure he does the stuff right the first time and doesn't want to needlessly overspend. He already owns almost all the home theater gear he'd like to use. He has a Sony HW45ES 1080p projector, which, of course, might get upgraded to 4K HDR at some point. He has a 2.35 to 1 Loon Vision screen. Dude, what is the deal with the widescreens today?
People got them.
It is not acoustically transparent. A Marantz SR7010 receiver, one SVS PP2000 subwoofer for now, with plans to get a second, and all golden ear speakers, including a pair of Triton 2 Plus towers and a Supercenter XXL, 2 pairs of in-wall Invisa MPX speakers for surrounds and surround backs, and 2 pairs of HDR, 7000 in-ceiling speakers for Atmos. So the end goal is 7.2.4 configuration. All right, so he's going 23 by 12 by 8.5. Okay, just remember that. His main concerns are about the actual wall and ceiling construction, how those relate to soundproofing. He had started with the notion of using resilient channels, 2 layers of 5/8-inch drywall, and green glue with Roxol insulation everywhere. And then the folks at AVS Forum, that den of thieves and miscreants, said not to use resilient channels and to use hat channels and sound clips instead, which cost more and take up a bit more space. And that every surface in the room needs to be decoupled this way. His contractor said that what he really needs to do is focus on isolating the utility room, preventing sound from getting into his HVAC ducts and air return, which are shared throughout the entire house extension, and making sure the new wall and door are well sealed. He said if those 3 major things are taken care of, decoupling all the walls and ceiling isn't necessary. So what do we say? He doesn't need dead silence, so maximum soundproofing at maximum cost would be overkill. He described what he wants is well muffled. What's the real most cost-effective construction plan for that?
So that's basically what you've got in your theater, right? Well muffled. It's not dead silence outside of your theater, but it's muffled. It's
muffled. You will not hear, even at a near reference volume in my theater, if you're standing not outside the door, but in the kitchen, which is 10, 12 feet away, you will not really notice much until the loudest parts of the movie and when the subwoofers kick in. The subwoofers kick in, you will notice.
What he had right now with a complete opening, right? Before they took down everything, where you just had a wide open opening and you got a PB2000 subwoofer playing in there. It's like, yeah, you're going to hear that everywhere when it's playing. It's not enclosed at all. You've got wide open air movement. But now that you're going to close in that room, just that is going to make a significant difference.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so from these pictures, it looks like, am I going to say that the soffit that's on the ceiling, one of the soffits he was talking about, is either on the left or the right side of the room? I can't tell which. It's going to be on the left or right side of the room.
Before what he had, so there's one soffit that's going down the entire length of the side, and then one soffit that's on one of the shorter walls.
Right.
And before, when the room was completed, when the room was finished, he had the screen underneath of that widthwise soffit. But now that's going to be the back of his room. So there's one shot where you're seeing the wall, where you can see there's the soffit on the left-hand side going down the entire length of the room, but then there's no soffit on what is going to be his new front wall. So that's going to be the orientation.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah.
Sort of. Whatever. Yeah. All right, so everybody that's talked to you has not been wrong. Basically,
right? Yeah, there's correct information both ways. Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. Everything in here has not been wrong. Your contractor has a very good point about the HVAC system. You want to make sure that, in as much as you can keep the sound from escaping the room through that. Yeah, I mean, but that also goes along to your outlets. You gotta sound dead in those as well. Any escape vector for that air is going to be bad.
Yeah, he's wisely saying focus on your flanking paths, right? If you went and talked to soundproofing company, they would call all these the flanking paths, which is you build your walls like crazy. You do all the things AVS said to do, right?
Right.
But then you have a way for the air to escape the room, and now you have circumvented all of that. You might as well not have done it because you've got a flanking path. So your contractor is saying focus on the flanking paths, worry a little bit less about overbuilding this room. That's the way to spend your money. And overall, I agree. Right. I think he's correct in that. So, I mean, I want to dig into this a little bit because several of your walls are exterior walls.
Right.
You don't need resilient channels or sound clips and hat channels on exterior walls. You don't. The framing is already decoupled from the structure of the building. So you definitely don't need it there. I would question on the exterior walls whether you need double drywall and green glue. I don't really think you do. So that's like 2 of your 4 main walls where I don't think you need to do.
Maybe 3. This could run
I think the
entire life of
utility
house.
room, you probably want to do double drywall and green glue on that. But again, the framing is already decoupled from the structure wall behind it, because that used to be the exterior wall of the original house.
See, I like using the utility room as an air return. And
yes, we're getting into that later.
Okay,
so let's focus on that part, the construction first. So I would say the only place where I might consider decoupling the actual drywall is on the new party wall that you're building. The new wall that goes into the rest of your basement extension. There, you probably want to use, I mean, why not go for the sound clips and hatch channels? Because now we're only talking about a portion of one wall.
Right. It's an opening probably a little bit bigger than a double door opening.
Right. So I would spend there on that new party wall you're constructing and on the door, which your contractor is already saying do.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you do it. The rest of your walls, I'm seriously questioning whether you even need double drywall at all.
Well, the ceiling too. He's going to need some. He's going to do stuff on the ceiling.
Yes. Yeah. So focus on your ceiling. Yeah, because that's going upstairs. You don't want sound just literally penetrating through the ceiling. And it looks like he's planning on in-ceiling speakers and in-ceiling lighting.
Yeah.
So for that, you want to make sure that you do some good backer boxes, because otherwise you've completely circumvented whatever you do on your ceiling. So does he need to decouple the ceiling? That's a question. Can he just do double drywall and green glue on the ceiling? So here's what I'm saying so far. New party wall, decoupled double drywall with green glue, and a good door. All right, that's the new party wall, but that's a small section.
And you said hat channels and all that other stuff too, though.
Yeah, sound clips and hat channels. Go for it. Go for the whole thing, because that's a small section of wall. The exterior walls, which are at least 2 of these walls, I'm like, just frame it and single layer of drywall. I don't think you need to do anything else on the exterior walls. Your utility room wall, already decoupled. The framing is already decoupled, so double drywall and green glue on that one back wall. I would do that. So ceiling is the question. On the ceiling, are we going to, so at least double drywall on the ceiling, but are we also going to decouple it? What would you say on that? If you can afford it, why not?
I mean,
it's not going to hurt.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to hurt.
It can only be positive.
Now, the difference you're going to notice most, I think, in that case, if you just say you did the double drywall and that was it up there,
right?
If you did that, you would the difference that you would notice between that and then decoupling would be mostly in
base,
just base and over and whether or not you ever heard anything other than bass. Basically,
right? Right.
Those like I said, my door's got a gap under it's a half inch. I mean, there's nothing stopping the air from getting out of this room, but there's lots of deadening in here, which helps. But when it gets loud, you can hear the swords clashing or whatever's going on in here.
Yeah,
you might get rid of all that. And then deaden the bass, how much bass is getting out as well. So you might be down to muffled. If that's what muffled means to you. Yeah. And that's you standing on top of it. I mean, maybe that's not you standing, a couple of rooms away on the other side of the house or something like that. So I would price it and then decide what's important to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But these
make
backer
sure,
boxes and the rest of it's not going to be cheap either. So
make sure that everything that is making holes in that ceiling is well sealed with backer boxes behind it. Insulation everywhere, yes. Doesn't have to be Roxel, which is more expensive. Use the cheap pink stuff. It's just as effective as far as sound goes. I mean, I know they sell like soundproofing insulation. It's no different. Just put the pink stuff everywhere. Totally fine. So I think that's most of that. Oh, I will say for the soffits themselves, build those well, because all your utility stuff is in there. But that's just the soffits, right? So make sure those are double drywalled and green glued.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so regarding the HVAC and air return, his contractor suggested extending the current forced air vents in the theater room so they no longer create holes in the ceiling, and they could be damped to reduce the sound transfer. Then he suggested just sealing up the existing air return just in the theater, installing basically a dead vent exhaust, or even just giving Jay a manual air return shutoff so they could seal it up for a couple of hours when he's watching a movie and then open it back up for the rest of the time. What do we think? I think it's going to get stupid hot in there if you do that.
Yeah, I don't like that second option.
No, I do like using the utility room as like a dead vent.
I like that a lot.
Then you can basically now in that utility room again. Now that's an escape vector for the sound. So now that utility room has to have good damping on it. If there are exterior walls in there, well, then we're right back to where we were before. But you're gonna have to think about the ceiling in there, and hell, dude, I would just shove that thing full of insulation.
Which he actually even mentioned. He's like, his contractor said, here's some stuff you can do in the utility room. He's like, yeah, I can do that because it doesn't have to look pretty.
No. So yeah, just throw it in there.
I'm in total agreement there. And yeah, I very much like separating what is essentially the air return for just this theater, separating that from the rest of the air return for all the rest of the house. Right. If those two things are not the same, so there's an existing air return in this portion of the basement that's going to be his theater. Seal that up. You don't need that anymore. We're now going to return the air directly to the furnace room because it's just on the other side of that wall. We're going to do that through a dead vent system, which is something his contractor suggested. So, yeah, I don't like the manual shut-off thing. I'm not a fan of that. You're going to forget it at some point, and then it's going to get musty in there.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. The dead vent into the utility room and separating this room from the rest of the HVAC return, 100% in favor of that.
Yeah. So for wiring, particularly his projector, he considered running everything through conduit. His installer recommended running fiber optic cable, the Cat 6 or 7, and then Cat 6 or 7, and then relying on adapters for any future HDMI needs. Should he insist upon something else? I mean, it's tough, dude, because we just never.
Yeah, for HDMI, the 48 gigabit stuff coming up, HDMI 2.1.
They always find a way to screw you. When it comes down to, they always find a way to make it so that whatever you purchased, however much you spent on it, is somehow obsolete. So I'm still in favor of conduit. Remember, I didn't put it in my room because I didn't have time, as I say. But I am still in favor of conduit. And
we're
if
talking
you can do it,
one conduit run to where your projector is going to be.
Yeah.
I realize it's a hassle because you're going through ceiling joists, so that's a lot of drilling to go through all that and that. I understand that's a added cost, and he's like, is it really worth it when you can just run Ethernet? I see where that opinion is coming from, so I'm not criticizing that.
Right. But you're looking at adapters that might be $500-600.
Yes.
In the future. Maybe more, especially if you're if you end up becoming an early adopter of some new technology. They might not exist for a bit.
Yeah, we saw when we went with HD base T, when we went from 10.2 gigabits to 18, at first they had a solution that required 2 Cat 6 cables. So you're thinking, okay, run 2 Cat 7s. That's not a problem. We can do that right now. And it's like, yeah, that might do it when we go from 18 to 48. Now they have a single Cat 6 solution that works for 18. So over time, I mean, I don't think your contractor is totally wrong here. At the same time, if you just ran the conduit now, it's done. And now you're 100% sure that no matter what happens, you have some kind of solution.
Ask the contractor how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
This is what I would say to him. I would say, listen, okay, so an HD-based T system right now, like we had a listener got on sale for $250.
Yeah, $250.
All right,
yeah.
But it's normally $500 to $700.
It can be, yeah. I mean, the Emotiva is $400, and that does everything. So let's say $400.
Let's say $400. Is it going to be? How much is it going to cost?
Is running conduit going to be less than $400?
Right,
because that kind of answer.
Or less than $800 if this is going to be your if you're going to have to do it for 4K and then 8K later on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Although I'm not criticizing the contractor because I think that's decent advice that he was giving. We're
just disagreeing.
Looking at it a different way.
Yeah, and as far as contractors go, we've dealt with a lot of people talking to a lot of different contractors, and we've heard some questionable advice from contractors.
This guy seems pretty spot on. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, he's not leading you wrong. So you got a good one. So you tell him the AVRant seal of approval on that guy. He needs at least a 2-channel amp to expand his SR7010 to 11 speaker Atmos. He was thinking a nice 3 or 5 channel amp to power at least his front, left, right, center would be nice. He was considering Anthem. What would we suggest? Not Anthem.
Not that we don't like Anthem.
Not that we like them, but
it's just you can get similar for a lot less. Yeah.
So Emotiva is a good choice.
Sure, yes.
Monoprice's Monolith amps is a good choice. And if you decide not to deal with any of that, then you can just get a 2-channel amp like my the Dayton Audio one.
Yeah.
Just to power your top middles.
I think powering the front 3 in here makes a lot of sense, though. So,
aren't those the ones with the powered subwoofers in them and everything?
The Tritons, they got powered sub drivers. And
I don't really feel like they need a ton of power. He's not going to be sitting.
They're not super hard to drive. But he needs at least 2 channels.
Right.
I'm on board with this. But I really like value-wise Emotiva's A5175. Because as the name suggests, that's 5 times 175 for $800. I'm like, that's a pretty nice value proposition. It's 5 channels. You don't really need 5 channels, but it also won't hurt anything. So I'm quite in favor of that, honestly.
So I'll tell you what happened with me, Jay. When I was adding my overhead speakers, I had 9 channels in my receiver, so I was fine up until 9 channels. And then I decided I wanted to do the overheads. And so I got some Focal birds, put them up there, and I started looking at amps. And Rob said, "Oh, you need a 2-channel amp, get this Dayton Audio one, it's $100." I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. I'll do that. But maybe I'll get something for my front too instead." So I started looking at the prices for the a 2-channel amp. I was like, well, if I'm going to 2 channels, it's not that much more for 3 channels. And you know what? Now that I look at it, if you look at this 3-channel amp from Emotiva, this 5-channel or this 2-channel amp from or 3-channel amp from Mono price, the 5-channel amp from Emotiva is not that bad. It's only $800. But wait, if I get that one, I could actually get a 7-channel. And pretty soon I was at $2,000.
Yep.
Started off with $100. I'm going to say you should get the $100 Dayton Audio because you don't need the rest of it. It's literally
you're now sealing in your room as well.
It's literally an extra expense that is unnecessary in this space. So save the money, spend it on insulation for that utility room for room treatments in your main theater and green glue and whatever the heck else you're going to need. That's what I'm going to say. Now, yes, you can get the Emotiva $800 one. That's fine. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. Or you can spend $700 on that on putting conduit.
Right. True. Yep. I can't disagree with that. So there you go. We got 2 value choices for you.
Chad is using a middle Atlantic equipment wrap, and he needs more power inlets. He lives on an island, and fluctuations in his power are common. So he invested, dude. Okay, so Chad lives on an island. So now the only thing I can think of is like got a volcano.
Yep. He lives in a lair.
It's a lair.
Chad lives in a lair.
It's the shape of a skull. All right. He invested in Monster Pro AVS 2000 voltage regulator, but only has 6 outlets, and he's got about 14 pieces of gear. Well, you throw away that monster to begin with, but anyways, pieces of gear to plug in. 14. He doesn't need additional power protection. He just needs more outlets, and he'd like a vertical 0U. Is that 0 or O?
It is a 0U, yes. Instead of a 1U or a 2U, they call it a 0U in a rack.
Which just means it's smaller than 1.
It just means it goes up the vertical side. So it takes up no rack spaces. Okay. So they call it a 0U, yeah.
So he'd like a 0U rack power strip so that it doesn't take any of his rack space. Middle Atlantic sells their own, of course, but they seem crazy expensive. Chad found the PDUV15 from Trip Light, which seems perfect for his needs. Would we strongly recommend something else? And will it be okay to plug the Trip Light power strip into one of the voltage regulators outlets so that all of the power strips outlets are now power conditioned? I got no problems with Trip Light. Trip Light's a perfectly fine company.
What this is, it's not even a surge protector itself. It's just more plugs.
More plugs, yeah.
It's just more plugs. So yeah, there's no reason to crazy overspend on this one. I mean, even APCs, they use a weird plug on it for some reason. I have no idea why. So this Trip Light for like $70, totally fine, man. That's what you need. And plugging it in to your existing voltage regulator, no problem.
As long as you're not plugging a bunch of high-powered things into that strip.
There you go.
You should be fine. I mean, I experienced the same problem. We'll talk about it in a second here. So things like his router, NAS, network accessible storage, whatever, Apple TV and cooling fans should be fine plugged into the power strip, right? Yes. What about his audio amplifiers and AV receivers? Can those be plugged into the power strip, which is then in turn plugged into the voltage regulator? Should they plug straight into the voltage regulator, or should they go directly into a wall outlet without voltage regulation at all? All right, so this is where we run into the issues here.
Yeah. So now we're going to agree, don't plug those things into the power strip.
No. So nothing high powered. Nothing that's got an amplifier in it or any of that. Like, okay, so I've got my little APC, battery backup for my computer, which I love. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. But I plugged Daisy's lamp into it, which is fine. But then I also plugged my laser printer into it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that laser printer would power up, it would take a huge draw and the lamp would go out.
Yeah.
Now nothing else would go off. It would all kind of flick for a second and make like a little popping noise, but nothing else would go off. So I ended up taking that printer and plugging it directly into the wall. Now everything's the lamp like flickers, but it doesn't go out.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's not all plugged into the same thing. You should not plug multiple or even one very high powered device into this power strip, because it's powering basically that one outlet is powering everything on that power strip.
That's right.
So all the low powered stuff go in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Cooling
totally
fans,
fine.
the NAS,
totally
the
fine.
Apple TV.
Yeah, all your source, your Blu-ray player, all
Blu-ray
that
player,
type of stuff.
yeah, all that
Cable
stuff
box,
is fine.
fine.
But now, as far as amplifiers, receivers, I think, are fine to plug into your voltage regulation. I've had no problems with that. Subwoofers are a different matter. I would plug those directly into a wall.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with that. So, yeah, there you go. Nothing more needs to be said.
So how is Plex as a music system? Years ago, it didn't work so well trying to play FLAC files on an old Apple TV model, and it didn't support gapless playback back then. But what about now? Should you use Roon instead? I think Plex is pretty much the de facto everything.
Well, I mean, first of all, he's already using it, so definitely just try it because it's costing you nothing. Now, okay, so gapless playback, they have implemented it. They didn't have it from the beginning, but they implemented it. They made a blog announcement about it. It isn't on every single playback client yet. But you've got a few different clients, so I'm sure one of them it'll work. FLAC playback doesn't seem to be any problem anymore. So I would definitely give it a try. Now, if it totally doesn't work for you, I have trouble recommending Roon. Not that I've used it and disliked it or something. It's just the price. It's like $500 for software. So I would point you to JRiver as an alternative. That it does cost money, but it's like $100 instead. Using JRiver portably isn't as slick, but they do have their JRemote app, which does still access your JRiver server. So, I mean, all of these use a server somewhere, right? Whether it's Plex or JRiver or Roon, they all use a server somewhere. So that's a wash. Plex is essentially free unless you paid for a Plex Pass.
Never heard of Roon. R-O-O-N.
It's more popular in Europe. It's more popular.
Maybe that's where his island is.
Could be. But I don't know. I have trouble recommending it. So give Plex a try, because out of all the devices you have, one of them probably does gapless playback now. And if that isn't working for you, give JRiver a look. That would be my recommendation.
All right. Callan already knows it's total BS, but there's an interview with a marketing director for Arender, whatever.
Arender, yes.
In which the claim is made that different hard drives in a NAS or network accessible storage can result in different sound quality, and that Arender is careful to only use neutral sounding solid state drives and never dirty sounding spinning hard drives, because the solid state and their $8,000 network music server is like wiping clean a dirty window. I don't even know what that means. Rob and Lee had a laugh about liquid sound last week, so this is even worse, right? These marketing guys will say anything. And you know what? The thing is that I've met people who are marketing executives, and they all seem very nice. Like nobody seems like the dude on.
Well, nobody goes into marketing unless you're like likable, usually pretty good looking and charismatic. If you're successful in marketing, you're probably all those things.
I mean, the only time only once in my life have I ever seen somebody in marketing who is like the stereotypical like looking for cocaine kind of guy. Just what I mean. I was at a party one time. This guy, and he was in the marketing department. He came out from he was at this people's apartment. I was in college, and he came out. And he goes, "What's this stuff right here?" And she looked at him. And she goes, "Laundry detergent." He goes, "Dang." And he went back to I'm like, "What are you doing in the laundry room? Just let us." So I mean, that's the marketing. But this happens. They are trying to differentiate. They have to explain to their customers why they should spend $8,000 on a music server. And it's not because their ones and zeros are any better than anybody else's ones and zeros.
This is so ridiculous.
I mean, on the face of it, it makes no sense. You can't even look at this and say, well, there could be. I mean, if you said the one valid thing you could say is, if you put the server in the room with you, the solid state drives are quieter.
Right.
And
they don't
I would be like,
and make any physical noise themselves. Sure.
I mean, okay, that's a thing. You are correct. But no one in their right mind sits in a room with their surfer right next to them and plugs a headphone jack into it. But maybe these people do. I don't know what this thing looks like.
There are lots of people who do not understand how digital anything works. It's
that's
mystery.
Absolutely true. And apparently they all have $8,000 to spend on a network surfer.
Because, there are the people who believe that running a green marker over your CD changed the sound. They could hear it. They would swear up and down they could hear it. Right. So, a complete lack of understanding of what digital transmission of information means. But no. So, this is obviously complete. He knows it's BS. Yes, it is BS. It is completely ridiculous.
I hate to say false equivalency again, but it's the same sort of thing where people are like, well, if it's spinning, then it's different than if it's solid state. But you almost want to say, listen, shouldn't you be selling these guys the spinning disc because it's more like a record? That seems to make more sense.
Well, why do they want any of this? Don't you need it all on analog reel-to-reel tape?
Yeah. I love it. I will never get over the guy who took vinyl and then re-recorded it on reel-to-reel.
Yes,
that guy is the best. Yep. That guy is, his self-delusion goes so deep. He doesn't even know where it ends. Robert says, what would we say is the best 65-inch TV for movie and TV watching? What's the other thing? Is it video games? Gaming. For under $3,000. He's got a Oppo 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player, so Dolby Vision support would be nice. 65-inch. So TLC does not make a 65, do they?
TCL, sure, but that's $1,000. He's got $3,000 he could spend.
Oh, okay. Well, there's got to be an OLED out there. For him.
C8 OLED. There you go.
But I'm like, I'm still thinking, well, we could probably get him a Vizio for $700.
Oh yeah, we could do this for under $1,000. Yes, the TCL for 6 series for under $1,000. But no, he's got up to $3,000 to spend. The C8 is definitely under that. Is he worried about the C9? You didn't mention gaming, and that's really the only benefit of the new features is in gaming. So C8, grab one now. There you go. Yeah, it's the best. It does Dolby Vision too.
Somebody's gonna make a 92-inch or whatever the screen is that's behind me size OLED, and I'm gonna have
Sony's got a 98-inch LCD, so it's not that far off.
I'm telling you, I am thinking that's about the time when I'll be thinking about upgrading this thing.
Well, there's the 88-inch 8K OLED, but it's not going to be as inexpensive as your projection setup.
Yeah, because
it's going to cost a bit.
Yeah, someone's gonna have to give it to me, is what you're telling me. I don't even know how to get the damn thing in the door. Anyway,
if someone gives you like a 25 or I don't know how much it's gonna be, I'm $25,000 or $35,000, I'm guessing. Oh yeah, that was one thing. CES, nobody had prices for anything, so that was weird.
It's all hypothetical.
It is.
All right, we'll do a couple. I don't know how many more we have to do, but
so there was 19 on the list. A couple more would be great if we can.
Dan really liked Rob and Lee's idea last week of using 2 pair of side surround speakers so that his 2 rows of seats each get their own pair of surrounds. His Anthem MRX 1120 receiver says that 5 of its 11 amplifier channels are 140 watts per channel class AB, while the remaining 6 amplifier channels are 60 watts per channel class D. Of course, they would say that. So random, but go on. Since the surrounds surrounds are channels 4 and 5, they'll be using the 140 watts channel class AB amplification is in his 12-foot wide room. Will this be sufficient power to power his 2 paradigm monitor speakers on each side, or will he need a separate amplifier? You're going to be just fine, dude. You're
going to be super okay. I mean, the monitor series from Paradigm were very efficient. They're not quite as efficient as, say, Klipsch, but they were up in the like 93 or 94 dB
It doesn't
per watt
matter.
range.
He's barely giving those things a watt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
a lot of times it won't even be a watt.
Yeah,
not even 1 watt a lot of the time.
You are so far away from having to need just for side surrounds in a normal space. To need external amplification, you have to have extremely hard to drive speakers. And even then, most theater rooms that we talk about in here, you're still sitting close enough that you don't need external amplification.
In your case, though, zero worry.
Right. Yeah. So you already ran 14.4 speaker wire. It wouldn't be a big problem to wire 2 surround speakers in series, but it would be even easier to run them in parallel. So would that be okay in this case? I mean,
I'm going to say yes in this case.
In this case, you're sitting so close to the speakers.
And it's Paradigm monitors, which are super easy to drive.
So basically what's going to happen is you're going to half the impedance if you do this.
That's right.
which is, I mean, their impedance is probably 8, so you're going down to 4 ohms. Your amplifier is probably going to be fine with that because you're not going to be.
It's also Anthem, right? We're not talking about some chintzy amplifier.
Right.
So
I most of the time I would be hesitant, but and I'm still feeling a little hesitant. But the fact is that I mean, even at full reference volume, not going to get that much power to these things.
It's going to be 10 watts, dude.
Yeah, I just don't. I think it'll be. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, no. In this particular instance, if running them parallel is even easier, I don't have a problem with it because you're so close, because you have very robust amplification, and because the speakers you're driving are super easy to drive.
Yeah.
So you combine all of those 3 things, and doing parallel wiring in this case, I say is okay.
Right. Yeah. If you ever find your amplifier shutting down.
It won't.
It won't.
It super won't.
But if it does, then you could go back and say...
Go back and do it in series.
Yeah. Justin discovered our podcast on podcast on AV Rant not that long ago. I guess he found
I don't know what I was trying to say. YouTube? I don't know. I don't know what I wrote there.
All right. Well, that's very strange.
It was like 3 a.m. Sorry.
And he says he's been listening nonstop. And he says he's not an audio expert by any means. That's okay. Many of us aren't, including probably me, even though I was a professional for a while. He is trying to determine whether he's getting optimal performance from his speaker setup. He isn't sure exactly what information we need from him in order to help him optimize everything. So for the moment, he just wants to make sure his speakers are not inherently flawed in some way, and to also get our opinions about what sort of performance level you should expect from his speakers. He's got a pair of Yamo C103 bookshelf speakers and the matching C10 center from their former flagship concert series. That series has been discontinued, so he got them for about $1,000 altogether. The C103 sold for about $1,000 just for the pair when they were still full retail pricing. So was that a good deal? And what do we think about these speakers, and how do they stack up against the RBH and Ascend speakers we mentioned all the time? And if he had if he had his Yamo speakers optimally set up, what sort of performance should he be getting from them? Well, I mean, I don't know about how to tell you what performance, but Yamo speakers, the ones I've heard have been great, been fine.
Yes, yeah. No, I haven't heard these exact speakers in person, so I can't tell you outright. But going by reputation, which Yamo has never let me down in that regard. They've never been one of those ones where I'm like, oh, this series is great and this series is bad. They've been consistently very good. So these were like former flagship series. They've got a nice design. There's nothing about the design where I'm like, oh, that looks way out to lunch or something. No, nice design. You saved about $700 here. So I think that's a good deal. Seems like a good deal. I would expect these to stack up very nicely against other $1,000 per pair speakers. If you put them up against...
Not per pair. He got all 3 for $1,000.
I know, but at the time they were retail.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So I would expect them to stack up very, very nicely. If you were looking at SVS Ultra Series, if you were looking at something out of Kef's lineup, maybe even the R Series,
maybe. Yeah.
I'm thinking up there. So yeah, I mean, I would expect very good performance. I would expect, I mean, again, this is speculation and that, but I don't think I'm going to be way out to lunch. I would expect good neutral sound, because Yamo always has that. I would think these would be very good.
Yeah.
I do not think if you're hearing something and you really hate it, I don't think your speakers are the problem.
Right. So when you say performance, I mean, whatever the spec sheets say as far as, their performance is probably pretty accurate.
Yamo doesn't lie on their specs.
So like Rob said, if they are... if you're feeling like you're missing something or that they don't sound right, I'd be looking at your setup as far as how they are oriented in relation to where you're sitting, and more likely your room.
Yes.
Whether or not there's...
Yep. I wouldn't be blaming your speakers. And they're a very benign 88 sensitivity load, 88 decibels
reasonable
per watt type of load, easy to drive. So you shouldn't need crazy amplification. If you're tremendously far away from them, they might not be able to hit full reference volume, but they should be able to hit full reference volume right up to about 15 feet in distance.
All right, so the rest of his sound setup is an Onkyo TXR-Z910 receiver with an SVS SB2000 sub. His living room is 25 by 25, but he doesn't mention how far away he is sitting or whether the room is open to other parts of the house, which it almost certainly is.
Probably.
Because nobody makes a 25 by 25 foot room.
How many people have enclosed living rooms, right? Yeah.
It's hardwood floors. He says he has a lot of rugs, and it's wood paneled walls with the only covers being curtains and window dressings around these around 3 large windows. It's a vaulted ceiling that peaks at 15 feet. So is that enough info to make some suggestions about acoustic treatments or further speaker setup optimizations? And the answer is, of course, no.
I mean, well, not really, entirely. We can't fully optimize this. Please send us some photos.
Pictures.
Please send us some photos. That would be very helpful. Definitely let us know if this. There's no way. It's a living room. There's no way it's enclosed.
No.
So, but that mostly affects bass, but we definitely need to know how far away you're sitting. And
we need to know how far away you're sitting and where there are possible options for room treatments. And having a lot of rugs, it means a rug is not a panacea. And not only that, not all rugs are created equal. A lot of times it's not the rug so much that we're excited about when it comes to room deadening. We're more worried about what you put underneath that rug to give it some
padding,
give it some absorption. That padding is what's doing most of the absorption. The rug's not doing nothing. Pick up a piece of carpet and put your mouth up to it and blow. The air goes right through.
I'd still rather have almost any rug than completely just bare hardwood floors or tile floors everywhere. But that's not really an absorption panel. Yeah. It's not that.
So we need to see sort of what you're talking about. But you already know. From what you've listened from us so far, you already know what your issues are. Your issues are that there's a lot of hard reflective surfaces in here, and that could if you're sitting right up against a back wall, which it very well could be the case.
It could be.
You're 25 feet away from some speakers. Well, it's not getting that loud. And yes, the sound you might not be getting great imaging because the speakers aren't far enough apart, because no one in their right mind would put them that far apart. And the sound's bouncing right off the back wall, and messing up your imaging as well. So there's a lot of things that may be going on. But I mean, we see this all the time. That the reality is almost every room needs more treatments. And many living rooms have non-optimal placements that you have to deal with.
Yes.
So we can try to help you with that as much as we can, but we need some pictures.
Yeah, as far as the acoustical treatment part of that goes, send us in some pictures. We'll do what we can on that front. As far as just setting up your listening area and the speakers, we can go back to what I was mentioning to Ted there, where if you can figure out sort of the cone of dispersion of these speakers, and it should be wide and even on these have a nice wave guide on the tweeter, so that the tweeter's dispersion matches the woofer that they're using. It's a good design on that front. I would expect wide, even dispersion on these speakers, but do make sure that you're sitting within the cone of dispersion of any of those speakers. Play some pink noise, which is just the test tone built into your AV receiver. Get yourself right in front of the speaker, and only like a foot away, I'm talking, right in front of the speaker. Listen to that pink noise, and then move yourself left to right, up and down, and you can get a good sense of how far off center you can get while keeping the timbre about the same. Now make sure that the speakers are aimed such that you, when you are listening, are going to be within that cone of dispersion. And then, he's got an Onkyo receiver, an RZ810. Now that is, ACU EQ as far as auto setup goes, but in terms of just getting your distances and speaker levels correct, it can definitely do that.
The only thing I'd be worried about is if you've got it right on
if you're right on the back
wall, I would want to put something deadening, just like a pillow behind it, to make sure that it's not catching that.
And that's the other part. In terms of optimization, I'd want you sitting 15 feet or closer to these speakers. Yeah. So that's optimization, right? That is where these speakers will sound optimal, is 15 feet or closer.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one more, then we'll be done, because I have all kinds of stuff to do today. Nick is in the UK. He's got a nice 1080p 5.1 setup using KEF R series speakers, a BK Electric 12-inch sealed sub, a Yamaha RZV 1067 receiver, 1067, whatever, and a 48-inch Samsung TV. 48 inches. That must be a plasma, huh?
That's an LCD.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
Over the coming year, he'd like to upgrade to 4K Atmos setup with a budget of about £3,000. Though he could potentially go as high as £5,000 if it's super duper worth it. At the moment, he's got his eye on a 65-inch LG C8 OLED and a Denon X3500H receiver. He also wants an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. In what order do we think he should upgrade? I think you should upgrade that subwoofer, because that don't look very.
Really? I thought that looked pretty decent.
Any subwoofer that says frequency response at -3 dB, in your room, in your front room, in your front room, whatever the heck that means.
That's like
negative,
a living room in the
negative
UK,
3 dB lower than 20 hertz. Well, okay, that's not a measurement. And you're saying that if I shove it in the corner in a closet, I'll be able to get under 20 hertz at some volume. Yeah, well,
it's
yeah.
In the UK, finding good subs is difficult. I thought out of all the things that are out there, this was not that bad.
So, okay, he's got 1080p, 5.1 CAF. I love his speakers, so that's fine.
No need to upgrade your speakers.
Now,
great speakers.
He wants to go Atmos. Now, doesn't the 3500 top out at 9 speakers?
It tops out at 7.
Oh my god!
Which is actually that was his next question: is if he starts with 5.1.2, could he expand to 7.2.2 later with an X3500H? And no, you cannot. It tops out at 7.
I don't think that the receiver is the correct choice here to begin with.
I mean, even regardless, all of his questions, he only had 2 Atmos speakers. I'm like, if you're gonna do Atmos, I want you to have 4 speakers above you. Otherwise, you can't move the sounds above you except left to right.
Right.
So,
okay, so the TV is fine. I mean,
that's a great choice.
I think that's fine. I think the receiver,
unless you're a super duper hardcore gamer, then maybe wait for the Z9. Maybe
the receiver. I think that you can go up a model.
Yeah. And maybe look for an X4400H instead of the 4500H, because those are still out there sometimes. It might even be B stock or something, but you might be able to save money and get it at the same price as a new X3500H. So look for a 4400H.
Right. Yeah. The Ultra HD Blu-ray player, you could go with the new Sony that's coming out, the 800.
Yeah, the X800 M2. I'm quite excited for that thing because over the past couple of weeks we've been talking about, like, is there anything less than Panasonic's UB820, which is $500?
Right.
And it's like none of the other ones do Dolby Vision properly. So I'm excited about this X800 M2. You're gonna have to wait till May for that to come out. But hey, he was gonna upgrade in stages anyway. He wasn't gonna get this all right now. So there you go. Wait for
We're kind of answering all of his questions at once. So let's just go on with this. I mean, the CAF speakers he's got are great. So he's got a 5.1 set up right now. He needs a second subwoofer in order to go to the 0.2 at some point.
Yeah.
I think the safest bet is to upgrade the sub. Not upgrade sub, to get a second sub.
That's the first thing. Not the TV, not the receiver, second sub.
Well, okay, so let's look at it this way. Every day that you wait on a TV, a Blu-ray player, or a receiver, get you closer to getting something cheaper, or getting you this year's model at next year's prices or last year's prices, or whatever, however you want to say that, where they start going on sale. So I would basically right now you are 100% safe to buy a second sub and get that integrated into your system without having to worry about, oh, if I had only waited 3 months, this other sub would have come out and it would have been the perfect one for me.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest thing to upgrade first.
Okay.
I know that sounds crazy. Then I think that you could install your Atmos speakers because, again, speakers, once you get them, they're going to be fine. Yeah, and then I think the TV, the receiver, and the Blu-ray player should be bought basically all at the same time.
It is kind of hard to get one and not the rest. Yeah. Although, I mean, if you're going to, I'd probably get the TV first because you can still enjoy upscaled 1080p. It still looks fantastic. You can enjoy the built-in streaming 4K HDR on that. So you can do that. After which, so you're not going to be passing through any 4K HDR signals through your existing receiver.
Right.
So I guess you could do the Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and if it has 2 HDMI outputs, which the X800 M2 will, you could still separately send the audio to your receiver and just the 4K HDR video to the TV. So I guess that's the order: TV, Ultra HD Blu-ray player, then receiver. Is that the order?
No, I mean, if you're looking to spend money this second, you can get the speakers without worrying about anything.
You can't use the speakers right now.
That's true, but the subwoofer you can. But I mean, I'm saying
the subwoofer you can, but the Atmos speakers you can't use right now unless he gets the receiver.
I think he needs to buy the receiver and the TV and everything, all that stuff, right at the same time. Now, how much is the C8 going to be in the UK as far as pounds?
It's about the same as dollars in the US.
Oh, so it's
not a whole lot different. So you're looking at about 2,500 ish. I don't. Maybe it's less.
Yeah, so you can get the TV and the Blu-ray player around the same time, and then get the receiver when you can.
There you go. Okay, we've stumbled into sort of an order.
I still think you get the subwoofer right now. I almost made it the whole podcast. Oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh, there you go.
God. We gotta end the podcast, Rob. Quickly, who else do we have left?
All right, so we have left Mark R, Chad M, John D, Damian D, and Alvin C. There you go. That's all right. Who is on our list.
We'll get you guys next week. We're going to thank our listeners of the week. We're going to thank Fob, Bastian, Jason, and Zachary for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and giving us a PayPal donation. We want to thank our 76 patrons over at patreon.com as well.
Yeah, that's Fab, Bastian, Jason, and Zach. Thanks so much for those PayPal donations, and to our 76 patrons over at patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. Thank you so much for the financial support.
And Frank, we want to thank you for your nice comments on Lee's podcast thing. And Justin, thank you for talking us up the blue jeans cable. Oh my God, my nose.
Yes,
it's Frank, so bad.
Justin, thank you for the support.
I'm trying to power through it. I'm going to get to the podcast.
I know. Question at avrant.com. That's where you send your questions.
My face is killing me. There was I did a VR thing this week too with my kids and my wife. We have to talk about that. It was like 2 hours of VR at this place that had basically the HTC Vibe setups in 3 different configurations: sitting down, standing up in a room, and then standing up in the little thing that holds you in, and you can kind of pretend to walk thing.
Yeah.
I had to lie down and take a nap afterwards because I was going to throw up all over the place, but it wasn't too bad. All right, for AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.